Okay, is everyone ready? We'll begin. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. This is a regularly scheduled City Council meeting. We'll call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, December 23rd, 2025. It's at 5:30 p.m. We have a rather lengthy agenda this evening and a presentation that's pertinent to our budget process and our levy. And so I will call this meeting to order. Pam, would you please take the roll call?
Johnson?
Here.
Motley?
Here.
Paulson?
Here.
Beyondich?
Present.
Bachschneider?
Here.
Cuffey?
Present. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Move to item 4 on the agenda, the public forum. This is an opportunity for anyone from the general public to speak before the council this evening. If there's anybody in the audience that wants to address the council this evening, please come forward at this time. Okay, seeing none, thank you. We'll move to item number 5 on the agenda, which is a consent agenda. The following items will be enacted by one motion unless a councilor or a citizen of the City of Virginia requests that the item be considered separately. Item 5.1 is the approval and correction of the December 9th, 2025 council meeting. Item 5.2 is the adoption of Finance Resolution number 25-024, the schedule of bills. Item 5.3, approve the balance due on pay application 19 to Kraus Anderson in the amount of $5,618.07 for the Public Safety Building project. Item 5.4, approve the exempt permit for Whitetails Unlimited to conduct a raffle on February 28th, 2026 at the Elks Lodge in Virginia. And finally, item 5.5, approve the updated travel request for Britt C. Bennis, City Administrator, and Jim Hunt, Event Program Services Manager for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, to attend the Duluth Wedding Show on January 10th, 2026 in Duluth, Minnesota at a cost of $960. These are the consent agenda items before the council today. Looking for council action.
I will move the consent agenda.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the consent agenda. Is there support?
Support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Bachschneider for discussion. Further discussion, Councilor Bachschneider, then over to Councilor Paulson. Councilor Bachschneider.
Thank you. On 5.5, the updated travel request, previously it was approved for one individual to attend this event. Is there rationale for sending 2 people instead of the one when one was previously approved?
Doesn't cost any different, number one or two of the same people. It is actually a very busy event, and the one person that was going to go didn't like to go with other people, so she chose to go by herself and didn't want anybody else to come with. But it is a very busy event, and it would be more advantageous to have 2 of us there.
Thank you for that explanation, and appreciate you noting that was going to be my second question, that there's no additional cost to have a second person go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bachschneider. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Could I pull 5.2 for discussion, further discussion?
Yes, looking for approval of 5.1, 5.3, 5.4, and 5.5. Is there a motion to approve? And a support? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. 5.2, adoption of Finance Resolution number 25-024, the schedule of the bills. Councilor Paulson.
Mayor, so on page 10, almost all the way down, it's under Boomtown LLC for special event expense, happy hour, Iron Trail Motor. There was an event held, and the amount is $2,840.05. And I just want to confirm, and I did talk to Megan, and I think she's going to have to look at that further, but I just want to confirm that that is not an expense on alcohol, because I don't think the city is allowed to spend money on alcohol. So before I would approve that full payment, I just would like to confirm that, oh, Brian is here.
Yes, thank you. Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director Brian, would you please address Councilor Paulson's question?
That was for the food that was served that night. We did have an open bar open that night, but this is for the catering services that Boomtown provided us for that thank you event that we did for those businesses that have been partnering with us and supporting the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Okay, so this was just specifically for food only and no alcohol, is that correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay, okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Silber. So item 5.2, the adoption of Finance Resolution number 25-024, the schedule of bills. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Do we need the motion? Okay, motion for that to approve by Councilor Paulson, supported by Councilor Motley. Further discussion. All those in favor of approving 5.2, the schedule of bills, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6, appearances. No one is scheduled to appear before the council this evening. So I'm going to move up to item 3.1, the proclamation. We have a proclamation this evening to read, and it's a proclamation regarding the National Blood Donors Month. Whereas more than 50 years ago, January was designated as the Blood Donor Month, which is the NBDM, an annual observance to honor volunteer blood donors and inspire more individuals to keep during a time of the year when blood supplies are historically low. Whereas Memorial Blood Centers has proudly served the Minnesota and western Wisconsin region for more than 65 years, providing a safe and reliable blood supply to more Minnesota hospitals and EMS partners than any other blood provider across the state of Minnesota. And whereas the need for blood is constant, every 2 seconds someone in the United States requires a blood transfusion, but the supply is not, relying entirely on the generosity of volunteer donors to meet the medical needs of patients nationwide. Whereas only about 3% of the eligible Americans donate blood each year, placing an enormous burden on a small portion of the population to sustain the national blood supply. Even a 1% increase in participation could end chronic shortages across the country. Whereas donations from younger generations are increasingly critical, as the number of blood donors under the age of 30 has dropped by nearly 1/3 nationwide since the COVID-19 pandemic, creating an urgent need to engage and inspire the next generation of blood donors. Whereas O negative blood, the universal blood type, makes up just 6% of the population, but is essential for trauma care and emergencies, making it one of the most frequently in demand and short supplied blood types. Whereas blood transfusions save countless of lives every day, including cancer patients, trauma victims, newborns and their mothers, transplant recipients, surgery patients, and individuals with chronic conditions such as sickle cell disease and thalassemia. Now therefore resolve, Larry Cuffey Jr., Mayor of the City of Virginia, and the elected body, the City Council of the City of Virginia, do hereby claim January 2026 as National Blood Donor Month in Virginia, Minnesota. To my hand, to be filed in City of Virginia. Thank you. Okay, we move to item number 7, unfinished business. Item 7.1, the Mesabi Humane Society animal contract. Just one little update, Counselor, for the council and the public. Britt, our city administrator, and I met with Sheriff Ramsey and Under Sheriff Akerson at the new public safety building to talk about the animal control contract. We came up with a plan to engage other communities as well. Sheriff Ramsey had indicated he would take the ball and notify some of the people that are affected by that. He noted that in the north and the south part of the county, this is an ongoing problem. We're not the only ones experiencing this. Hibbing just recently took over the animal control cells for the city of Hibbing, the one that's currently in Hibbing. Sheriff Ramsey is going to engage the assistance of the Range Association and Municipality and Schools Executive Director, Paul Peltier, to bring together the various communities and try to find a way to collaborate on some type of plan moving forward to provide humane and animal control for the county. So it may be a collaborative moving forward, so additional meetings will follow, and we look forward for some additional discussions with the council as a whole. Anything else, Bert, that came out of that meeting? Okay, thank you. And we limited it to that topic as well, so. Okay, item number 8, discussion items. Item 8.1, and it's my pleasure to introduce today the representative of Baker Tilly to give us a presentation. And Matt Stark from Baker Tilly is here to provide some information that we requested to review our financial model and projections to move forward. So thank you for taking the time to come up to do this on December the 23rd, a couple of days before Christmas, and I'm glad you were able to accommodate us. And welcome to the City Council meeting. This is a timely way in which to provide some additional information regarding our financial future.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of council. Again, I'm Matt Stark from Baker Tilly. Before that, I was with Springstead, so we've been up here quite a few times. We know the way.
Yes, sir.
I'm joined tonight by Steve Scharf. He could not make it in person due to some holiday traveling, but he is sitting in virtually. I'm not sure if we can get him on a speaker or a phone, but he's around. Steve, are you up there?
Mayor Council.
Good evening.
I am here, so whenever you need me to kick things off, I can certainly jump in.
Thank you, Steve.
So I think with that, we do have some slides prepared for information. I don't know if we're able to share them through Matt. Otherwise, I think I have the capability to do that through Zoom. So whatever is easiest, and I can see him now on the YouTube video. So perfect.
Yep.
So just to kick things off, again, thanks for the time this evening. We have a pretty fair amount of information to discuss, resulting from the forecasts and the modeling that we've put together. As you can see, Matt in front of you, he's certainly a member of the team and a valuable member at that. So just to kick things off before I send it back his way, I just wanted to reiterate or reaffirm the purpose of our work together. Give a little bit of background, just as an overview. Matt's going to give some background on the recent financial performance of the city, and then looking ahead over the what we would call the study period, some of the projections put forth, both on general fund and enterprise funds, as well as some special revenue funds, and then some recommended next steps, just as we look ahead, recognizing where we are in the budget process for fiscal 26, then looking ahead for fiscal 27 and beyond. So just to kind of jump in, as I said before, I toss it back over to Matt. The purpose of the engagement was to develop a financial model showing the city's recent and projected financial performance. That's including actual performance since 2022. So we wanted to look back a few years and not just a single past look on where the city has been, as well as current budget. So some elements of the conversation, I think, later on in the agenda, and then looking ahead 10 years based on some assumptions that Matt will get into here in a little bit. As I stated, the forecasting includes the general fund, enterprise funds, with exception to VPU, and some major special revenue funds, namely ambulance, event center, and a few others. It includes some regular operating items or the regular operating items. Of course, debt service requirements as a significant component as well, and planned capital investments. So, really looking to view holistically the city's position, again, recent past, where we're sort of looking to head in fiscal 26, and then again beyond for the next 10 years. And then develop that model for city staff. We certainly look to take an advisory approach, which means we want to make sure that we're helping arm city staff in their planning process. So this model that we've put together is designed for folks at the city to take over and use, and that will be a component moving forward of our involvement with you all, is helping integrate that model into the city's workflow and making sure everybody's comfortable with its use and purpose. So we'll provide training on that model. Really kind of looking at it at the start of the new year, and then how to use that and some of the tools that are available within that really comprehensive model. And it's going to generate projections to illustrate various scenarios showing impacts and different assumptions. So as we talk about, how we're looking mid-year or towards the end of next year, right, implementing the budget and looking at where really we're landing as we wind down next year, we can sort of do a look back there, and we can also continue to adjust and refine and look ahead just as reality plays out through the fiscal year. So that's the large purpose of the engagement. We're working with staff, and we've already implemented and completed a good portion of this work, and that's going to involve doing that look back, like I mentioned, and developing the assumptions again that Matt's going to go into here in a little bit, and developing those baselines looking ahead. So with that, it's a lot, but I think it's all important work, and Matt's going to cover, I think, a lot of the highlights here, and we'll round it off with some sort of looking ahead items, and certainly look to take questions really whenever you would like, but we've also reserved some time at the end. So with that, Matt, I'll toss it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Sheriff. Mr. Stark?
Thank you. We'll sort of dive in because I'm the numbers guy. I get to go over all the charts and graphs. So we'll start off with a quick look at the balance between revenues and expenditures over the last few years. We picked this up in 2022, trying to pick a starting point when things were starting to get back to normal after the pandemic. So we look back that far. So we'll take a quick look at revenues and expenditures, then we'll look at what the fund balance looks like, and then from there we'll look forward. For tonight, we wanted to focus on the general fund, of course, but we're also looking at the ambulance fund and the event center fund as they have major impacts on your operations. We'll look at your enterprise funds later in this presentation, and then you've got some other minor funds that they're in the model, but we won't be going over them tonight. They have very minimal impacts. Starting with the general fund then, the blue columns in here is your revenues to the general fund, and red is expenditures. So you'll see in 22 and 23, expenditures were outstripping revenues by a significant amount. Fortunately, that gap has closed. 2024 was much more reasonable. You're still a little behind, but the gap was closing. And then the 25 budget showed break even. So that's a good trend that we like to see. Of note, the red bars in here include the general fund's contributions to the event center. In the early years, I believe it was a fund transfer, and later on it was built into the recreation budget, I believe. For the purposes of our analysis, we've been treating it consistently as a fund transfer. On the ambulance fund.
Mayor, if I could ask one quick question?
Of course.
Yes, Counselor Bachschnider?
Thank you. For the 2025 budget, how far into 2025 were you looking at for this? Through what month?
Oh, we were actually looking at the budgeted amounts. I did not have the actuals passed early in the year.
So for 2025, it was just the budgeted amount?
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
And I tried to label that on the chart just to keep clear that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Stark?
All right. Moving on from the general fund to the ambulance fund, again, we see an imbalance here between your revenues and expenditures. I don't think this comes as a surprise to anybody, but that deficit each year has varied between 350,000 up to about 650,000 in 23. And so that is a trend that we don't particularly like to see. We'd love to see that gap closed sooner than later. For the 2026 budget, I believe the budget for the coming year is anticipating some significant increases in ambulance revenues. I believe you're moving to a different billing system. And so that we hope will help to close that gap. On the event center, this one started with a very significant deficit, and that gap has been narrowing each year, and so that's a positive sign, just the fact that we're catching up there, but the revenues in here are including that transfer from the general fund that was part of the red columns on that previous tab. This also is just looking at operations at the event center. The sales tax revenue that goes to the debt service on the building itself is a completely separate animal. So we're looking at operations and not really the debt service on the construction.
And just to point out there, even though the sales tax is sufficient to pay off our debt, it's the operating expenses that we have to address.
Right, and the sales tax revenues that come in are earmarked for that debt service, and so they're not really available to offset some of these expenses.
Thank you.
Yep. So that was just a quick snapshot of those three major funds and what we're seeing in terms of revenue and expenditures. We'll jump into fund reserves and what the fund balance has been. Before we dive into that, I just wanted to do the 1 minute Accounting 101 version of fund reserves. In your financial reports, these come in 5 different flavors. Non-spendable and restricted are what we see most often in the general fund and in the ambulance and the event center. Non-spendable is basically money that you already spent and it just hasn't gone out yet. And then restricted funds are, well, they're restricted. In some cases, it can be something like bond proceeds that are restricted to building whatever the bond was issued for. Committed and assigned balances, we're not going to touch on those a lot because those aren't part of the mix for what we're discussing tonight. But then unassigned funds at the bottom there, that's the money that's available for general purposes out of that fund. So that is the actual money in the bank that you can use to do what you need to do. That's not already earmarked for something else. So in my discussion tonight, I'm going to be talking a lot about the unassigned balance as opposed to an overall fund balance. Looking first at the general fund, you'll see the red segments on these charts are the non-spendable or the restricted funds. So these are committed to something else. They're already earmarked. And so just in the 2022, you had a bare sliver of available funds, and in 23 and 24, you actually had negative available funds. So the amount that you had in your total fund balance was actually less than what you had for restricted purposes. Not a great position to be in. As a matter of policy, I believe the city passed a policy in 2012 about trying to get the general fund unassigned balance up to 35% of regular expenditures. So currently we're well short of that. The silver lining in this one is that negative balance that was very significant in 23. In 2024 was up. It was $700,000 negative, which is better than 3.2 million by a long shot. But still, it's an issue that needs to be addressed sooner than later. For the year that's ending next week, we anticipate not a big change between 24 and 25, but I'll have to wait and hear from Megan and Britt in terms of where the actual year end winds up. Just coming soon. Ambulance fund on here, not a lot to talk about in terms of restricted funds. But the available funds and the total fund balance has been falling in recent years. This is a trend that we don't want to see at all. You started at about negative 500,000 in 2022, and that has grown by about $500,000 a year. Again, as you improve your billing and your revenue side, we hope that we can reverse this trend. But this is definitely something that you'll want to keep top of mind. And then third is the event center. Again, the trend here is unfortunately similar to what we saw with the ambulance fund. And so this has also been falling year over year. Started at about 2.3 million in 2022, and it has continued to fall to negative 3.8 million in 2024. So this is another area where the city's going to want to shore up that fund and get it out of the red, out of the negative territory. That brings me to sort of our initial short-term recommendations, and that's really just the stuff that we were just covering. So where you've got imbalances between revenues and expenditures, it's time to start taking steps to closing those gaps and trying to get to a break-even or a surplus situation. And then in terms of fund balance, restoring the fund balances for your major funds. For your special revenue funds, at least getting those up into positive territory, and then for the general fund to try to get it up to that 35% of expenditures target that's part of the city's policy. And then the third piece here is just start your planning for the next cycle. I'm going to be laying out some issues and problems tonight. I don't think any of them are surprise, but having them out in the open is a good first step. And then I'm hopeful that the city can start its discussions. And yeah, there's going to be some big decisions to make in the coming year. So it's start now and avoid the rush. So that was all kind of the look back. That's how things have been the last few years, how we got to where we are now. Next, we're going to start looking forward. So these are our projections for each of these three major funds. Some of the basic assumptions that we used in terms of generating the projections started with the 2025 and 2026 budgets as our sort of baseline starting point. And then we looked at just basic inflators, around 3% for most line items on both the revenue and the expenditure side, with some exceptions. We know health insurance, professional services have been continuing to rise a bit more quickly than regular inflation would indicate. We've assumed no changes in program offerings, levels of service, staffing levels, any of that. So we're holding all of that constant. And then capital outlays, which is the other major piece of these expenditures, they were based on the most recent capital plan that we got from the city. So with that understood, looking first at the general fund, this is fairly good news, actually. 2026 budget does include some revenue increases that help to bump up the blue bars. So we're looking at a fairly decent surplus of revenues over expenditures, which is good. We want to see that to help with fund balance. And also because there are some other obligations or demands that are put onto the general fund. So in this case, the red bars for expenditures are not including, transfers for the event center or the ambulance fund. So baseline looks good, but we know that there's other demands that are going to be placed on the general fund. Looking at the fund balance in the general fund, growth is looking really good, but again, this is before we plug in any of the other transfers out of the general fund that may be required. The gray line on this chart then is showing what that 35% minimum target is. That's the city's fund policy. So ideally, you want to keep those columns above that gray line. On the ambulance fund, on here, I apologize that the visuals aren't quite as high contrast as we might like, but you'll see in 2027 through 2033, there are small darker colored blue segments at the top of each of those bars, and that is essentially what we were showing as being shortfalls in the revenue in the ambulance fund that would require additional revenues. So for the sake of these illustrations, we are just assuming that those would be coming from the general fund. The operating budgets for ambulance were pretty well in balance. Where we're seeing some of these contributions being made is where we had capital expenditures for where they're purchasing equipment or vehicles in the ambulance fund. Event center, similar graphic setup here. So the lighter blue segments at the bottom is showing the regular revenues coming in. And then the darker blue is showing that gap, and so what we would anticipate the general fund having to chip in. This was done with our baseline assumptions, just based on where we've been in 25 and 26. It's my understanding that there's some more development that's planned around the event center that's likely to change this outlook, hopefully make things a bit more positive. So as the city gets more details around that, this projection can get updated, and hopefully the regular revenue segments will rise and the general fund transfers can shrink, hopefully. Revisiting the general fund there, what we were looking at before then was before any of these demands were made. This is an attempt to show what that balance looks like if the general fund is kicking in to those other funds for keeping them in balance. And so you'll see essentially the blue bars are unchanged. That's what we were looking at before. And then the red bars, the solid medium red is what we were looking at before. That's the general fund expenditures. And then that lighter shade of sort of pink is for the event center. And then you'll see a couple little slivers in there for the ambulance. They're not very significant in the scheme of things.
Could we just hold that for one question? Mr. Stark, thank you. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. With the revenues that are projected on this slide, does that include revenues from the event center and growth of their programming and rentals?
The slide we're looking at currently is general fund revenues, so we don't have anything from the event center on this one. The previous slide, I can go back, event center here, this was just showing regular event center revenues. And my hope is that with additional development around the event center, that the sort of lighter blue segments in there are going to grow. And as a result, that darker blue, that fund transfer that's needed to keep the event center in balance, we're hopeful that those will shrink as a result of the lighter blue segments growing.
So be clear, the page we're 22, I guess we're on in your slideshow, isn't necessarily as accurate as the general fund because it does not reflect any revenue from the event center. It is only showing expenses from the event center.
Yes. So in our model that we built for the event center, because it's a special revenue fund, we're showing its revenues and expenditures going into that fund in isolation. And then what we were seeing, initially, basically we'd be looking at this chart without those dark blue segments. So you just have it was similar to what we saw at the top of my presentation, where the expenses are a lot greater than the revenues. So yeah, this one is showing the additional monies that would have to come in from the general fund to keep the event center in balance. And so the revenues for the event center are assigned to the event center as opposed to being reflected in the general fund. So to the extent that things change over here, it will, to the extent that things are improving at the event center, it will cause some of that light red, that sort of pink segment on this chart to shrink because less of a subsidy would be needed from the general fund to flow over there.
Thank you for that clarity.
Yeah, certainly. So yes, with those transfers in the equation, then you'll see we're still showing a slight surplus for these first few years, which is good. That should help you to get some more funds into that general fund. But fairly quickly, the expenses catch up, and after 2029 and 2030, you're going to be back into a deficit situation, absent any action in the meantime. So, something to keep in mind and get started on now, but you do have a little bit of runway to work with there. That was revenues and expenditures. Here's fund balance for the general fund. Again, those blue columns is what we were showing initially without any external demands. The red columns are showing what we anticipate if those fund transfers need to be made. And so you'll see that while the general fund does build up some fund balance and gets up to $3 million or so by 2028, It's still well short of that 35% threshold that the city policy would like to see, and it does peter out and go negative again around 2034. So again, it's not something that's going to crush you this year, but it is a concern, and the city will want to start taking steps now to improve that long-term outlook. Apart from the regular expenditures that we look at for day-to-day operations, capital outlay is the other big piece of expense that the city needs to deal with. This is just showing what your annual outlays were in the last plan that we've got. In total, it's about $15 million over the next 10 years. It's front-loaded. You'll see these first couple of columns are quite high. That's normal. We see that everywhere, and that's just a result of previous year projects being bumped back, and so they tend to accumulate. And so you wind up with the spike up front. Ideally, you chip away at that as much as you can, and as the years go on, that spike comes down and is less pronounced. On debt service side, so previous projects that you've done that you did long-term financing for, we're showing a bit of a spike for 26, and that was some handoff between your short-term financing and your permanent financing for the Public Safety Center. That might be illusionary. I have to check with Megan and Britt to see how the interest payments and everything were working for the coming year. But baseline after that, 27 up until 33, the city's paying around 1.8 or 1.9 million a year for regular debt service. And then one of your outstanding debts is retired then in 2033, and so in 34 and beyond, you get a little bit more room in there. So it falls about $500,000 between 33 and 34. So that'll be good news if you have any projects that you want to do out there. You'll have a little bit of wiggle room on your debt service fund, but unfortunately, that's several years out. So that was the general fund and your major special revenue funds. Take a couple minutes to talk about enterprise funds. We looked at sewer, solid waste, golf, and the clinic, the clinic lease. And we're leaving VPU out. That was sort of outside the scope of our study. Assumptions on this is basically the same as what we're looking at for the general fund. So it's just regular inflators, capital based on the capital plan. The good news here, we'll look at all four of these on one chart just because it's a similar story. So sewer is in blue, trash, solid waste is in red, the golf course is gray, and then the clinic is gold. This is net income, and so this is operating income minus operating expenses, and then whatever these funds are paying for fund transfers and debt service and that kind of stuff. All of these are in positive territory. The sewer fund and the clinic are up above 800,000, and they go up above $1 million a year as we continue on. Golf course is fairly steady at about $250,000. Solid waste, net income is kind of low. It starts around 100,000 and it sort of tails off. But one thing to bear in mind with solid waste is their actual operating income is closer to $300,000 a year, and it just falls to this level as a result of the solid waste fund kicking in its administrative fees back to City Hall for the services it receives. So this is after making that transfer back to City Hall. It's still positive. So it's good to see. Again, the city would want to keep an eye on all of these and make sure that they're staying healthy. But for right now, they all look like they're on a good track. Similar as to what we were doing before, after we look at revenues, we look at fund balances. And again, these are all in the black. Golf course is a bit of a skinny fund balance to start with, but it's showing a positive trend over time, and so not too worried about that. You'll see the gold line for the clinic and the blue line for the sewer fund both take an upward trajectory. That's as each of those funds is retiring some of its outstanding debt. That makes more cash reserves available because it's not making principal payments anymore. So yes, if there's a bit of a positive message in my doom and gloom, it's that the enterprise funds seem to be doing pretty well.
One moment, please, sir.
Of course.
Counselor Pauls.
Thank you. So I just want to talk real quick, if I could, about the sewer fund. We had a discussion with the auditor, and is all of that, I mean, that you're stating this is cash balance for the actual sewer fund, which is in blue. So what is the total dollar amount? Are you looking at actual total, like, are you doing those, is this more of a projection based on the rates?
Yeah, and as part of my assumptions, I was assuming that the city would be making regular, I think it was 3% increases in rates to keep up with the cost estimates or the assumption on expenditures.
Okay.
And so that was part of this baseline analysis.
So when we met with the auditor, we basically we are negative 1.3 million in that sewer fund. So I'm not sure how this is, I'm just wondering what's accurate.
I will double check the records that I got and make sure that I pulled in the unassigned balance as opposed to the total balance, because if the sewer fund had restricted balances similar to what we saw in the general fund, that's a very likely source of that kind of discrepancy.
So that kind of leads me to another question, and maybe this is for later, but as we're planning, you talk about restricted and unrestricted and assigned and unassigned. So as we are planning, I guess when we had our conversation and he kind of told us we should look at our projects in silos. So if we have a bond, say it's a 2025 bond, but it covers 4 different projects, we should put those projects in a silo with a GL account code. And then whatever, if there's a sewer portion, instead of putting it into the sewer fund and then transferring it out to the project at the end of the year or whenever, those dollars should be allocated or siloed into the project fund itself. So it's not, because otherwise it's looking like the sewer fund balance is inflated when potentially those were for project dollars or costs.
Sure.
So-
And that's similar to what we saw with general fund and, well, just the city overall.
Overall. So I'm wondering what we can do better to try to make the financial picture very clear and transparent of what those cash balances actually are. Are we actually in the negative? Do we actually have a little cash? Is that cash in there reserved for a specific project? And what would you recommend us to do maybe a little differently so that we aren't doing these transfer in, transfer out, or due to and due froms?
But generally speaking, when you're doing a major capital project, you'll have your capital fund that just holds the money that's being used to do the construction. And then you'll have a debt service fund that you'll use to pay back whatever it was that you borrowed for that construction money. I'm used to seeing debt service funds that have several different revenue sources coming into them. So if you've got a project that has water and sewer and street and various components to it, it'll have income streams from each one of those based on how much of the project belonged to them. So for something like the sewer fund, if it is contributing to the debt service fund for a particular project, and it might be contributing to more than one depending on the timing of various projects. Within the sewer fund, we should be looking at whatever is committed for the coming year for its share of the debt service and showing that as reserved, because it's going to have to go out to make that payment.
So do you recommend, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm just trying to understand, do you recommend keeping that in the sewer fund itself, which is the enterprise fund? Do you recommend, because then what we're seeing is a due to and due from at the end of the year when they do the audit. And it's really, like, we had 4 projects in that one, I think it was 2025A. So there were 4 projects associated with that bond. And then we had found that the sewer fund had paid, basically erroneously got pulled out of the sewer fund, but it was a project cost. So the money went into the sewer fund and then had to come back out for the project. So I want to know, just so that we're not doing this due to, due from, and it gets confusing if you've got more than one project, obviously. Is that the recommendation, though, to leave it in the sewer fund just?
I'll defer to your auditor and your accountants and whatnot in terms of what they prefer. I'm not a certified accountant by any chance.
Sure.
But ideally, any monies that come in to build the project would be sitting in a capital fund separate, so they're not in anybody's piggy bank. They're by themselves. And then the sewer fund in this case, it'll be showing its annual contributions to the debt service fund to pay for its share. The money that was, assuming you're doing long-term financing for this and you issued a bond for it, the money from that bond, I believe, would just sit in the capital fund and it would never show up in the sewer fund to begin with. So the sewer fund would just, it would have its revenues from ratepayers like
From just the
usual,
normal revenue stream.
and it would pay out its debt service along with all of its other regular expenses during the year.
So, and I think that might be I mean, maybe you can double check on that too, but I think for me, that was a little confusing. We were trying to pay for a piece of a camera system that was like 500,000. So we just, I guess maybe just understanding that cash balance is really important. Is the cash really there, and is that allocation truly cash, or should it be allocated to a project?
Yeah, and just accounting-wise, the important thing is that each of the utility funds is making its contributions from its own money, because they're expected to be self-sustaining funds as enterprises. And so to the extent that everybody's pulling their own weight, you're in good shape. As far as understanding like the different piggy banks, the different pots of money, I commonly see that when there's big projects that bring in money for capital purposes, that they sit in a separate fund that's just dedicated to that project. And so they don't get commingled with general fund
Maybe that
or
would be a
special
good
revenue or enterprise.
recommendation from you guys coming forward to just, I mean, I think we're still growing and learning in all this, and we've had so many different projects coming lately. I mean, you can see that in the charts.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so just for our own organization, I feel like that would be a great, if you could maybe give some sort of recommendation on that, how to better assist us in that, that would be wonderful.
Certainly, certainly.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. And I think later on in the presentation, the recommendations, the next steps will be recommendations moving forward. Thank you. Mr. Stark?
All right. Well, and that's where we are next, talking about recommendations and next steps. So
There we go.
on the left side of the screen is the short-term recommendations that I was talking about a little while ago. So that's just getting revenues and expenditures into balance. That's getting your fund balances back up to healthy levels. And that's starting on your discussions for long-term planning, which leads into the items on the right side of the slide under the blue header. So for your longer-term consideration, finishing the long-term financial forecast, which I'm happy to say we're just about ready to deliver that. And so we'll be turning that over and doing training and whatnot early in the new year. So you'll have a good financial tool that you can use that will help you to understand some of these changes that you might be anticipating. And then start what we would call a strategic budget review. And that's basically taking a step back and looking from a very high level at saying, okay, where can we bring new money in? Where can we find cost savings to bring everything into balance? Do we have capital funding sources that we can tap that won't necessarily hit the property taxpayers? And to the extent that we have gaps remaining that can't be fixed on the revenue side, what can we do to take steps to reduce expenditures? And that's a lot of prioritizing in terms of the city's values and its priorities. And then the last one on the right there is develop a fiscal sustainability plan. And this is just some fancy terminology. It's basically get the city on a sustainable financial path and do your best to keep it on that financial path so that when you're looking at your long-term projections in the future, they will generally be going gently up. And so makes life a lot easier for everyone if you can avoid those deficits.
And I would just like to add, cutting expenditures increases revenues. That's what this is all about. So we're doing everything we can with this budget process moving forward to try to do everything to cut expenses. We're doing enormous work to try to do that. The council has been very vigilant about doing it with staff. But I think the challenging piece moving forward is capturing some revenue increases. I'm sure that there's some recommendations moving forward for that as well. So whatever we have to do to raise revenue can't be on a negative levy budget, so we have to figure out other ways in which to do that. And I think that's in your long-term projections later on down this presentation.
Yes, and in the interest of maintaining expectations, I don't have a lot of specifics for
no.
the coming months, but
Yeah.
we do have a kind of a guideposts that the city can follow.
Thank you.
Yeah. Steve, did you want to chime in on the property tax revenue piece?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Mayor and council members, just as we look at, well, maybe I'll start with this. I want to recognize a lot of the work that's gone on this year in the budget process. When we started this work, looking backwards, you can see the trend, and Matt's illustrated that nicely, just in the direction in recent years, closing some of those gaps. So just as we think about where we are and where we're looking for ahead, I wanted to provide some context or some conceptual items to sort of mull over, if you will, just as we again look ahead. Not a recommendation, not a suggestion, but I wanted to somehow quantify order of magnitude in some of the conversation, just especially as it relates to general fund balance as an indicator that's been highlighted in the recent S&P report, and then we referenced policy earlier on in the conversation. So I thought it'd be helpful, again, not as a recommendation, but just contextually what that could look like from a dollars and cents perspective. So I wanted to illustrate the value of a 1% as it relates to property tax. Again, just to ground ourselves in some numbers and what that really looks like. Recognizing there's always some tensions in play, and we'll get to those here in a second. But what does 1% look like in terms of any sort of increase from a property tax perspective? And you could sort of supplement this with, a 1% amount, generally speaking, in a similar dollar value. So 1%, what does that equate? A $225,000 home, and you can see in the table on the right, we've given some ranges just in terms of market value for properties. What that sort of equates to on an annual basis. On $225,000, it's about $25 a year. It's still dollars out the door, and certainly we recognize that it's a cost paid by taxpayers. But I wanted to give sort of the impact of that just as we continue in the conversation, which translates to about $90,000 per year from a revenue perspective for the city. So just from kind of big picture, what does a 1% of anything on the tax side look like? That's about the amounts in today's dollars that we're looking at. So if we could jump to the next slide. Matt earlier.
Mr. Scharf, could we just pause just one moment for a question?
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Scharf. So just to clarify on that, so we've kind of always had a baseline, and maybe we just didn't do the math correctly, but so we've said that for every 60,000, it's 1%. So this is stating for every 90,000 expense, it's 1% increase. Is that correct?
That's right, Councilmember.
Okay. And then
Property values might be a little different from what I'm looking at versus the rule of thumb previously, but.
so we can kind of put that, is that going to be like a standard we could bank on, or does that change year to year? 90,000 equals 1%.
Yeah, that's a great question. That will change year to year. Really, if you want some of the sausage making behind this, it's a 1% increase on the tax rate. So it's not a corollary 1% added to it. This is kind of difficult to explain. It's not a 1% added. So for example, if your tax rate is 120%, it's not 121, it's a 1% increase in the tax rate. So that might be where some of that variance is showing up, as well as, a change in the property value that relates to tax capacity. So I'd say generally speaking, it's going to be in that neighborhood just as things progress, but I do expect it'll change to some degree just as those dollars behind them change as well.
So if we're looking to decrease, or as we're looking to decrease the actual levy percentage, we should be focused on $90,000 per percentage point.
I think it's a
If I
useful,
understand the question correctly, if you were to reduce the tax rate by 1%, yes, that would be more related to the 90,000. It is a little different than applying 1% to your taxable value
Right.
or your net tax capacity. But yeah, that's the math behind it.
Okay, and then just one other point, Mr. Scharf, is that we get a spreadsheet from the county. It's been the last maybe 2 or 3 years. And I don't think on that spreadsheet, it's $25 on a $225 home. So is that based on the state formula for property tax in St. Louis County? Or where's that $25 on a $225 come from?
Sure, Councilmember, that's another great question. Again, it does rely on the statutory formula for Class 1A property. Again, it's an application of a 1% increase in the tax rate, so you might see a difference in the number resulting from that.
yes, if your effective tax rate was, say, 106%, I think it's around there. We were saying if that goes up to, say, 107%, it's going to increase that tax bill by about $25 for that homeowner.
Okay, so just a different way of framing it.
Yes, and as you get into some of your longer-term planning and you're talking about balance between additional revenues and balancing that against expenditures, yeah, that's going to be a big part of your discussion.
So
I
thank
say
you for
don't-
pausing and
don't,
helping me.
Yes, and don't get too attached to that $90,000 mark right now, because as Steve was saying, that can vary a little depending on what property we're talking about. I think what we're trying to get across here is that, if you needed to raise another $900,000 on the revenue side, that would be a 10% increase, and that would be more like a $250 increase for this homeowner. And so it's really just a way of tempering everybody's expectations in terms of what we can generate with a 1% or a 5% increase.
Very good.
It'll help close the gap, but it probably won't do it all by itself. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Mr. Sharp, please continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I got a couple slides left before I toss it back to Matt, but sort of translating that conversation just in terms of dollar impact from a taxpayer perspective and how that impacts from a city perspective. If we look at different scenarios, and again, not a recommendation, but wanted to sort of game out, if you will, some different scenarios in which we do increase property tax as a way to help fill the gap. I don't think the solution is 100% we're going to look to the taxpayers, nor do I see a solution as 100% we're going to cut costs or we're going to look to these other revenue sources. We certainly recognize, we expect it's going to be some blend of change. But just to isolate it, just to demonstrate order of magnitude again, I wanted to provide various scenarios from 0%. So, if you just let, for lack of a better term, taxable value or a tax capacity ride out without making any adjustments to your tax rate, how does that flow into your general fund net fund balance? And the answer is, as Matt has illustrated before, after a few years, you start dipping into that negative balance. Again, to show there is work yet to be done. Again, also highlighting the good work that's gone on so far. And then on the other end of the spectrum, what does 5% look like? Changing nothing else from a modeling perspective, 5% annual increase from a tax rate perspective, that is a stabilizing force in terms of general fund balance. It improves your general fund balance. It's somewhat obvious, of course, raising taxes will increase tax revenue, but it does stabilize the fund balance. So sort of an order of magnitude and from a spectrum of change, that is an opportunity that we can highlight to say, it's not an outwardly or otherworldly impact that we're looking at, but incremental change year over year can prove to benefit the city's financial position and certainly right size fund balance with a byproduct that's positive for the city of stabilizing that rating, which I know is one objective we're looking at in the near term. So again, I wanted to provide this as helpful context, again, as sort of bookend scenarios. And certainly this is something that we would look to do and work with the city staff in the planning year for next year as we look at fiscal 27 and how things are playing out in fiscal 26, is helping to establish that plan as we're having budget conversations for next year. But again, wanted to highlight this as sort of a takeaway item of what those impacts might look like over the future, absent no other change. So absent any other change that Matt's highlighted there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sharp. One more question from Councilor Paulson. Councilor Paulson?
Mayor, and again, thank you, Mr. Scharf. So this might be a loaded question, but so when we've talked about, this council has talked about the levy, we talk about the general fund levy percentage increase or number increase. But over the course of the year, we've committed to projects or equipment or radio leases or what have you. And so that approval of those items or those projects creates a debt levy immediately without having any, I mean, you could keep your general, that's what we're struggling with, I think, even this evening, is we have so many projects. So we've increased our debt levy, and right away, it's almost 10%. So what we're trying to do is minimize the general fund levy, but I think what we really need to look at overall is discussing this as one levy. Like as we're looking at projects or purchasing equipment or leases, I mean, you're just piling on percentages as you approve projects or equipment or what have you. So then when we get to the end of the year and we start our budget planning process, we're already in sometimes, I mean, almost a double digit, depending upon how many projects are in that current year or how much expenditures, like we've done some different bonds. So my question is, how would you help us work toward better planning on, if we need to defer a project, we don't want to defer a project, but we might have to defer the project if it's going to create such a heavy burden of a debt levy on the taxpayers. But we never really talk about that as a council. We always talk about it kind of at the end of our budgeting process. Okay, well, we've already approved this throughout the year. Now that's the percentage of our debt levy, and we've already adopted that. So now we're almost working from a disadvantaged point, if you will, moving forward with trying to keep up with just like general inflation. What you're saying is we need to do some of those slow increases, so we don't end up in 2035 in the negative if we keep at a zero levy. But the reason I feel like we're having these conversations is because we're getting in over our head on the debt levy portion. And I don't know if that makes sense to you. It is a loaded question, but that is a big part of a lot of why we're here tonight having difficult discussions.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. I think that some of that will be discussed here in the next slide. We talk about the balancing act and what we're going to be moving, how we establish revenue streams, the pressures, the core tensions, and the competing pressures that we're going to have with respect to this. So
I would like just an answer, though, to that. How do we talk about this?
I think we'll touch on that later in this presentation.
Okay.
And if we just put a pin in that for now, and if we don't cover these questions, we can revisit this after we've talked about some of our other recommendations.
thank you, Councilor Paulson. Mr. Sharp?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and council members. Just to wrap up another segment of my portion of the conversation, again, we're really looking ahead, somewhat touching on Councilor Paulson's question, recognizing there's that core tension to do with increasing fund balance as a targeted metric for financial performance, how that impacts the taxpayers or the ratepayers, and that competing pressure with capital needs over the duration. We recognize that increasing fund balance is going to improve the financial position and enhance long-term financial flexibility of the city to react to some opportunistic items, and as well as defensively looking at variances within the budget that can be absorbed through fund balance without necessarily the need to sort of tap the debt well, if you will, and provide that sort of enhanced flexibility moving forward. But that certainly comes at a cost. So just as we continue the conversation both today and looking ahead, I wanted to remind folks that we too are thinking about these things. We recognize that there are tensions involved, and the conversation around increasing revenue is not necessarily viewed in a vacuum. And also recognizing that there is an equity component for taxpayers and ratepayers. Higher revenues often mean increased taxes or fees, so there's some expectations that go along with that, and we certainly aren't looking to disproportionately burden certain groups. So we're always keeping that in mind, as well as the public perception of some of these items. And then that balancing act of the capital needs, right? You asked a great question. I think it'll be addressed through the remainder of the conversation. And again, certainly we want to make sure it's wholly addressed. But how do you balance that? Do you commit, for example, $3 million in a budget year, or do you debt finance the project over a 20-year period, knowing that you're layering on additional levy dollars over a longer term, with that added interest component? So, there's certainly mechanisms in place, capital improvement plans being one, and sort of policy and good practices that we can certainly talk about if needed. But that is a juggler, a balancing act, recognizing that there is a cost or a trade-off between either option. So I think prioritizing projects as we look ahead and recognizing that holistic tax levy impact, I think will be an important factor as we move forward. So wanted to kind of wrap again my piece of this portion of the conversation with just recognizing that there are complexities and challenges with these decisions, and certainly we look to keep those in account and keep those factored as we help staff in recommendations moving forward.
Yeah, and thank you. I think this balancing act slide is very telling on some of the directions we're moving forward. So thank you, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Matt. I'll toss it back to you.
All right. So getting into some more of our best practices and financial forecasting recommendations here. Forecasting, I build forecasting models for a living. It is basically math. You're just doing a lot of arithmetic. But what gives it value is that it can give you good predictive data to understand where you're going to be a year from now or 5 years from now. The trick is having accurate data to work with and realistic assumptions about what you think is going to happen in the next few years. As my good friend Steve Toller always says, the numbers never sleep. So one thing to get comfortable with is that it's always a moving target. You do your best to get yourself on a good path, but there's always an understanding that the world is going to throw you a curveball. For local governments, just quick outline kind of what the value is here. The purpose here is to give the council the tools it needs to make informed decisions. And it's also a way of stepping back a little bit to take a big picture look at things as opposed to being reactive to whatever the most urgent thing is in a given month. In terms of usefulness, ideally, when you're making your plan, it's credible, people believe in it, it's understandable, you try and make it as clear as possible, and it's linked to good practices. One thing we always talk about is control. So there are things that are within the city's control and there are things that are outside of it. And so in terms of the actions that you're taking, it's to do what you can with the items that you actually have control over, and trying to position yourself to where you can handle any kind of unexpected well, like I say, curveballs that come in. Why does it matter? I'm going to go through these as quick as I can in the interest of time, but hopefully these are good reference for the future. The big takeaways on this one is, especially that second line item, reveal structural gaps early. Having an idea that there's a problem coming down the pike, when you've got a year to deal with it, or 3 years or 5 years to deal with it, you have a lot more options that you can work with in terms of how to address a problem. And so it allows you to take a measured response and not be in a quick fire reactive mode where you're forced to do things that you otherwise would prefer not to. The next one there, credibility, and most of these have this in common. It's that if you can put together a plan and describe what your plan is and what it's doing and why, it allows residents of the city to understand what the priorities are and what the council is doing to try and get done as much good stuff as it can. It also helps with like debt markets and credit rating agencies. They like to see that the city is looking ahead and has a plan. And it also has first order benefits where it, like I say, it allows you to take more measured responses to problems that you see coming. It lets you anticipate where you might have a hiccup coming in if you understand that you might have some capital investments that will need to be refreshed. You might have some systems that are starting to fail where you know you're going to have to replace them. You might have contracts that are coming up for negotiation. And so understanding the long-term plan will put you in a much firmer position in terms of dealing with all of those. Budget conversations, this is like step 2 of your long-term planning deal. And this gets back to, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's getting the revenues and the expenditures in balance, prioritizing what you have to get done versus what will have to wait, or maybe you just can't do it at all. A lot of the things that are on these lists are simple enough to explain. People will understand, you got to balance the budget. Just because it's simple doesn't make it easy. And I don't want anyone to get confused about that. You can lay out a policy that sounds very simple and easy to understand, but actually accomplishing it takes a lot of back and forth and compromise and prioritization. And yeah, this is essentially, you're just, as policymakers, you're trying to set, these are the city's priorities, these are our strategic goals, this is what we want to try and get done, and then turn that over to staff to get back to you and say, this is what we need in order to get all of these done. And so there's going to be a lot of communication and back and forth. Fiscal sustainability plan, again, this is all about just getting the city on a path where your long-term projections are level or even a little bit on the positive side so that you know you're on solid ground and that 3 years from now or 5 years from now, you're not going to be in a crisis mode. You'll see some of these, if we're talking about revenue enhancements or revenue diversification, if we're talking about ways to shift costs out of the general fund or to bring in extra revenues, those are great because they affect the revenue side and you don't have to worry about any hits in terms of programs and operations. But if all of that is not enough, then you would have to look at that fourth box on there with the red label that talks about maybe you can't do everything with the resources that you have available. And those are hard conversations to have when you're talking about prioritizing what we have to do and what we really want to do. Sometimes you just can't do everything that you want to. Best practices here. This, again, you've got a head start because the long-term fiscal analysis is what we've been working on all year, and we'll be turning that over in January. So you're going to have an initial look at what things look like given the current assumptions. But yeah, the city will want to establish what its goals are and its priorities are. That fifth column over there for engaging stakeholders is a really important one. You have to communicate with the city organization in terms of your staff, and also the broader city, your residents and your other stakeholders. We understand you're not going to make everybody happy all the time, especially when you're talking about prioritizing things, because somebody's going to wind up with the short end of the stick. But having it all out in the open and making sure that you're communicating clearly, ideally, even if someone's not happy, they'll at least understand how they fit into the scheme of things, and they'll understand that it's not that that program wasn't important, it's just that we couldn't do both of these things and something else came up ahead of it. Looked at these again. I think I might have duplicated a slide in here. Again, this is the first three are talking about revenues, being able to bring revenues in or allocate stuff out, and that allows you to maintain your current service levels. But then again, if A, B, and C are not enough, then you have to look at D to close the gap. Little 2x2 grid. Most people are familiar with these. The lower right quadrant on there is stuff that's easy to do and has a big impact. Generally, anything in that quarter has already been done. If it's easy to do and has a big impact, someone probably thought of it. But if you find anything in there, that'll be the first thing that you want to tackle. That upper right quadrant is things that are hard to do but have a big impact. It's uncommon to find things up there, but when you do identify it, it's almost always worth the effort to try and get that done just because it has a big impact. That upper left quadrant, that's stuff that's hard to do, that doesn't move the needle much. That's not where you want to start. Stay away from that if you can. And then you've got that lower left quadrant, which is things that are generally easy to do, but they don't have a big impact. And so for those, if you identify a lot of them, cumulatively they can help. And so, yeah, you keep an eye out for those and do as many of them as you can. Again, what we call easy or difficult, that's always in terms of how much legwork is required to get something to happen, and it's about prioritizing, anytime you're talking about winners and losers, that's high difficulty. Again, apologies for not having lots of concrete initial steps for you to take, but I'm a model builder more than I am a budget facilitator. But I'm hopeful that some of these outlines that Steve and I are bringing tonight will help the council understand in the short term, the city will need to take some steps to help restore its fund balances. But in the longer term, I really encourage the city to take a step back, take a deep breath, look at this big picture over the course of 5 or 10 years, and just start having these conversations on what can we afford, what can't we afford, what are our priorities, and then have conversations early so that you can get to a consensus ahead of your budget deadlines, and have time to communicate with staff and with the residents of the city so that everyone can understand what is the big picture, what is it we're trying to do, and to the extent that we can't do everything, explain what those trade-offs are. That's the end of my material. To the extent that we've not covered something, I'm happy to take questions, and Steve is still on the line, so let us have it.
Okay, I'll start. Mr. Scharf, Mr. Stark, thank you very much for coming, particularly on December 23rd, but we were very timely for this presentation moving forward. It gives us a baseline and an understanding and an eye-opener about some of the things that we have to do moving forward as an elected body. So we'll continue to work with you and your staff to try to help us guide us through this process so that we can come to a consensus about balancing our budget, reducing our expenses, increasing our revenues, and if necessary, go to a step that we don't want to be at, but we have to leave no stone unturned, so to speak. So that being said, does any counselor have any other questions before we move on to the next item on the agenda? And thank Mr. Scharf and Mr. Stark for their presentation today. Counselor Motley.
I just want to tell you, thank you for coming and thank you for your presentation. I got on this council in 2023. It's now 2025. I feel like it continues to be everything in the negative on our spending. This just reiterates what some of us already believe, that the city cannot continue the way it's always been run. It is not sustainable. We're getting yelled at constantly by taxpayers, and I would hope that this council in 2026 becomes much more aggressive going forward on what the future budget looks like for 2027. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Motley. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you both for being here today. It's a really excellent presentation, well thought out, well planned. I made some notes as we were going through, just some comments. One of the last things that you mentioned was that you're good at models and outlines, and I appreciate that. You have given us a overview that you can give us knowing what you know. You don't sit here every day. You don't know the day-to-day operations. You don't interact with the staff. And I appreciate your perspective. I think that gives us a very clean and a very logical explanation of what we need to do moving forward. So I appreciate that, first of all. You answered my question about the transferring and revenue. I kept making notes that you mentioned multiple times in your presentation about revenue. And our staff does a phenomenal job at the department head and administrative level of finding unplanned revenue, grants, donations, that kind of stuff. A lot of what we do in this town is funded by grants that our staff has found through IRRR or state or MPCA, those things. And I understand that that's not part of long-term planning. You don't plan on that, you hope for it, but it's not necessarily part of the plan. So I appreciate that position that you took on that. You answered that note a little bit later on. One of the things that you have alluded to, this is a note on the ambulance funds, is that one of our challenges is that other government agencies don't fund us at what we need to be funded to provide services for 500 plus square miles.
Right.
And yes, there's a voluntary tax that we could go and ask for, but nobody's going to pay for it because they don't have to. And so there's some work that continues to be done at the state level to create that mandatory taxing district or whatever that looks like. And that is something that our staff have been working on for years and years and years and years. I've been here 9 years, and every year there are people down at the legislature on St. Louis County Days, on Northern Minnesota Days, trying to help them understand that this is one of our challenges, specifically for the ambulance in Virginia. So we appreciate that, and knowing that that could change at any time depending on what the folks in Washington, D.C. or St. Paul want to do. I also really appreciate that the $1 million transfer in. I continue to hear folks not acknowledge that we were paying $1 million a year for a building that was used 7 days out of the year. I have kids, so if you don't get the 6-7 reference, that's okay. But we are now in a building that generates revenue on top of what we used to be getting in. So I think it's important to note that this building is not just losing money like the old building was. It is actually generating revenue, and that $1 million is budgeted because we would have been paying that if we still had the old building. So I appreciate that very much. I cannot thank the two of you enough for the chart about what a 1% increase in the levy looks like. My home is $75,000. I just got a $10,000 upgrade from the county because of so many folks. There was storms, and last year there was a moratorium on increasing property taxes because of it being a natural disaster. But this year, all those folks got hit with their property taxes because of new roofs, new siding, new windows, all visible from the outside. All stuff that increased their property value, and so their taxes went up, their property value went up, which means mine also went up, even though I had none of that done. And I really appreciate the breakout of the tax implication on $125,000 being $11. I have been saying for many years, I have not voted in favor of a levy that we have proposed over the last several years because they have been too low, because we are not even staying even with markets or the tax, the CPI, whatever. So I truly appreciate it. I would find it interesting if we went backwards 10 years if possible, and I'm not asking you to do this, it's just a thought in my head. If we had raised our levy appropriately 10 years ago, 9 years ago, 8 years ago, where would we be today with the fund balance and that kind of stuff looking forward? I appreciate the general fund levy, and even tonight, 0 is fine, but even a 1% or a 2% increase from this council tonight puts us ahead that much further instead of waiting 10 years to be in the hole. So I cannot thank you enough for this particular slide and how that affects us. One of the notes I made was that our debt service and all these things we're in debt for are investments in our community. We're not just throwing money out the window. We are investing in our community so that we're not paying more for heating at the old fire hall than we are paying for staffing. We are providing healthy, safe places for our public safety center to live, literally live, work, exercise, train, and host events. These are investments in our community that not only benefit the city of Virginia, but they benefit basically the 500 square miles that our ambulance serves. So to look at everything in just numbers, I'm a math guy. I love it's all math. It's just how you look at it. I think that is so true. We have spent a lot of time looking at numbers and only numbers. And I think your presentation does an excellent job of reminding us that it's about the balance. It's about how do the numbers affect the other things we want to see, the other things we want to accomplish? Where do we want our city in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years? I'll say this until I'm not sitting here. My daughter wants to be the mayor, and she's 11. I want to make sure she has a city that she can be proud of and be the mayor of. So looking at this stuff, it is more of a picture of everything. And the last thing that I wrote, thank you, on my sticky note, but remember, the numbers never sleep. And I think that is a profound statement. Too often budgets are done and left alone, and we just keep going, nope, this budget says we only have $12, so we can only spend $12. No, a budget means we have $12 here, we need 30, so let's find someplace else that has an extra $18 and let's move that because we don't need it. And I think that's one of the things that this council and other councils can really pay attention to, that making sure that our budget is a living document and we're shifting money as we need to cover the unexpected, or revenue and expenses, either one. I think that is key. I appreciate the time. I can teach math, but I could not do this. So I appreciate what you've brought to us, and I look forward to I look forward to working with you and having you help us stay in balance. I think that's the key word moving forward when it comes to both cutting expenses and generating revenue. So thank you both very much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. So before we go to Councilor Pauls, I just want to say that this presentation gave us today is a guideline for us to try to improve the integrity of our financial future to ensure that we have an environment where we're providing the services that the public needs and expects, and that we're trying to do everything we can to reduce the pressures on our businesses and our residents with respect to the kind of, you want to live and work here, but you have to afford to live and work here as well. So the one slide that was really important to me was the balancing act with the core tensions and the competing pressures. Those are the things we have to address. Those are the things that's going to help us find a balance moving forward. And we have some individuals on this council that have some really good financial sound background, have a good core opportunity for that. So this is going to be helpful for us, along with them, to help us guide us through this process. So we're looking forward to moving with you on this, to continue to work on this model that you have, and helping us move forward as we have to make those tough decisions, whether it's A, B, C, or at the last resort, D. So thank you for that. Councilor Paulson.
Mayor. Okay, just real quick, I'm trying to be as fast as I can. I did make notes as well. So I would assume that we'll be having further conversations together. You with our city staff, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, the scope of the project that I've been working on is the planning tool that we're building for the finance department.
So we'll be receiving a planning tool.
Yes, and I'll be training up staff on
like
how to
what
use
you
it.
Had
so that-
mentioned, which is pretty exciting, I think, from what I've heard. I'm happy about that.
Yes, so yeah, the idea is giving you the tools to do some of this work, but then, yes, you know, I'm just in St. Paul if you need me. It's an easy phone call.
So, and I don't know how extensive our coverage is, and I appreciate all the graphs and charts. One of the, I guess, couple of notes that I made is potential if you could give recommendations to close the gap on the ambulance deficit. In terms of our long-term planning, we're doing really good on the collection of that 1% sales tax. So, and you said to revisit, you know, bonds, you need to maybe revisit those just because it's on the books. One of your slides just said, don't leave it hanging there, revisit it. And so I'm wondering if that can be revisited to maybe forecast, because we are collecting so much. I don't know how ahead of the game we are on that for the actual bond payment, but it would be wonderful if we could reduce the years on that. If we are ahead of the game, that would be amazing, and potentially move that 1% to pay the part of the public safety payment, bond payment.
I'd have to defer to your attorney in terms of what you're allowed to use the sales tax funds for.
We'd have to.
Sometimes they're
I think we'd have to go
limited.
to the state.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd have to get permission, but, I mean, just those, I guess, these are just notes that I'm making as maybe you guys work together and for future. This is some information that I would love to be able to receive. What can we do to build up our fund balances? So one of the things that we will be talking about in our budget discussion in just a little bit here is Britt has managed to reduce down to a negative general fund levy. 5% negative, Britt? 7 point something, which is going to offset the debt levy. So we're trying to get a net, you understand that?
Yes, the different components of the
Okay.
overall levy.
So,
Yep.
and I don't know, this is a very on-the-fly question for you. So in my long-term planning mind, and I look at the S&P report, that they would like us to obviously replenish those balances. Would you recommend keeping that at a negative or keeping it at a zero and taking the difference and replenishing our fund balances? What would be the smartest way in order to do that?
For me as an outsider, where,
Sorry to put you on the spot, but
I mean, I'm not a taxpayer here, and so whatever recommendations I make in terms of what your tax levies are,
or it could split the.
I can tell you to do anything I want because I don't have to live with the consequences. This goes back to what I was talking about before, where there's a difference between what looks simple versus what's easy. I do believe that the city needs to take some steps to restoring its fund balances. Not just because the debt market wants you to, but just as a best practice and as a matter of city policy. You're supposed to be maintaining a fund balance in there. How you get there, I don't have a magic wand or a silver bullet. It's going to be a mix of revenues coming in the door, which is going to either hit property taxpayers or ratepayers or people who pay for programs directly through charges for services. I mean, ideally, you can get some relief from the state to help with ambulance costs. That's not going to have a big local impact. Spread that across. Let all my neighbors in St. Paul worry about it. It's going to be it is honestly a balancing act. There is no. I can't tell you what the right answer is because I don't live here. I don't know what your strategic goals are, your priorities. I don't know what kind of tax appetite is out there with your property taxpayers.
Zero.
And so I can give you some tools that will help you to outline what are the impacts going to be. If we change this,
Perfect.
does it move the needle? If we change that, does it move the needle?
I think
And you can
that's
come up with
amazing.
a basket of different actions that collectively will get you to where you want to be.
I appreciate that.
But yeah, I can't tell you what the right answer is. I don't live here, and
Thank you. Thank you for your
Yeah.
honesty. The final question I have, and you just touched base with the gray line in slide 19. What kind of a mechanism should we have in place to alert the council when those fund balances are going below, is it above, it would be below the gray line, correct?
below the gray line is bad.
Yeah.
In terms of mechanisms, if you're getting regular reports on what the city's finances look like, you can keep an eye on.
We just need those fund balances within our, if we're doing monthly finance meetings, we would just need those fund balances within that information.
Yeah, and at the very least, you're going to get it annually when your audit comes out, because they'll have down to the nickel, this much is restricted, this much is unspendable, this much is unassigned, and it's that unassigned piece that you're interested in.
Okay, and then my last question, sorry, I'm asking too many. I still am having a little bit of a confusion of how we are supposed to be referencing the levy, because we have a debt levy, and then we have the general fund levy. So we need to talk about that. Like other communities, when I've read in the newspaper or online, most communities treat that as one discussion point. It's the total overall levy. Part of it could be debt levy, part of it could be general fund. But I'd like to be able to properly discuss that, because in the past, we've had meetings where we've gotten that budget down, or excuse me, the levy down last 4% one time. And we still had some debt levy. So there was some confusion. Oh, you have to add those two together. So for the best transparency that we can have, how do you recommend having that conversation?
I'll try not to be too long-winded with this. It's largely a matter of perspective, and that's going to come up a lot in all of your discussions that you'll be having in the coming year, or multiple years. From the city's perspective, part of its debt levy is dedicated to debt part of its levy is the debt levy for debt service, and part of its levy is the general levy for operations. From the perspective of a property owner, they don't care. They get a tax bill, they write a check. You can explain in your communications that, if you're paying $200, that 180 of that is for operations and 20 of it is for debt, whatever the ratio is. But unless part of that levy is something that's like super popular that people are happily contributing to, that part you might get away with. But by and large, I don't think property taxpayers care whether it's general levy or debt levy. They just know what the total city levy is. And then you've got the further communication about,
So maybe
the
we
school
just
district
need-
has its part and the
Right.
county has its part. So it's
Right.
like the overall tax bill is You only have
I think it
control
sounds,
over.
what I'm hearing you say, I think it just sounds like we need to do a little bit better job conveying, like even if we got it down to 4%, we still might have 8% in debt levy, that they are going to see that on their tax statement.
Yeah,
I'd rather just know how to communicate that, and maybe we just need to specify there will be a portion on the, as a debt levy, and a portion, well, hopefully we won't. Hopefully we're going to be better.
And hopefully you can communicate with people and say, like, the debt levy piece is kind of set in stone. That's money we borrowed in the past that we have to pay back. And so it is what it is. And from the charts we were saying, it's going to be basically constant for the next 6 or 7 years. And so, yeah, people can understand that that component is kind of already written. And when you're talking about your increases and decreases in total tax burden and whatnot, you can have as your communications that our general levy is changing by this much. But I would recommend including that we also have that debt levy that's on top of it. And so the overall impact on the bottom line of the tax bill is going to be whatever the number is.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Mayor, for giving me the time.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. So once again, thank you, Mr. Stark and Mr. Sharp, for the presentation, very timely, and we look forward to working with you in the future and getting our staff on board and finding a pathway. And I think to peel away the onion, the residents and the businesses in this community are concerned about one thing and one thing only: what they pay in their property taxes. And that's true. So however we can reduce that is a very important factor as we move forward with our budgeting process and implementing the model that you've presented today. So thanks again for coming, and have a safe trip back. And
Thank you.
on behalf of myself, and I can speak for the happy holidays, Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thank you. Mr. Sharp, thank you.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, thank you. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item number 8.2 on the agenda. Under discussion items is approve the 2026 tobacco licenses. We'll go through A through M, and then we'll make a motion for all of those. Approve 8.2A, Edwards Oil Incorporated, doing business as Lucky 7 Northside. 8.2B, Edwards Oil Incorporated, doing business as Lucky 7 Hoover Road. 8.2C, Miners Incorporated, doing business as Super One Foods North. Item 8.2D, Miners Incorporated, doing business as Super One Foods. Item 8.2E, Menu LLC, doing business at Rocket Liquor. 8.2F, C&B Warehouse Distributing, doing business as the Virginia Shortstop. Item 8.2G, C&B Warehouse Distributing Incorporated, doing business as Virginia Shortstop Express. Item 8.2H, Super One Liquor LLC, doing business as Super One Liquor. 8.2I, DG Retail LLC, doing business as Dollar General Store, number 13970. Item 8.2J, Mike Wazwaz, doing business as Super Smoke Shop, Virginia. Item 8.2K, Dennis Yorzak, doing business as The Newsette. Item 8.2L, Holiday/Corman LLC, doing business as Holiday Station number 274641. And finally, item 8.2M, Holiday Station LLC, doing business as Station Store number 2746148. These are tobacco licenses for approval today.
So move.
Move to approve by Counselor Bachschnider and supported by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? By hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Item 8.3, approve the 2026 secondhand goods license for the following. 8.3A, Priscilla Treestman, doing business as Jackie's Attic Thrift Store. And item 8.3B, Anthony Altabelli, doing business as Power Play Sports.
So move.
Move to approve by Counselor Bachschnider, supported by Counselor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.4, approve the 2026 solid waste haulers license for waste management.
So move.
Move to approve by Counselor Bachschnider. Is there support?
Support.
By Counselor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.5, approve the 2026 massage licenses for 8.5A, Annie Mo doing business as Aikata H&H Company. Item 8.5B, Angela Drake doing business as Laurentian Divide Salon and Spa. And item 8.5C, Mary Jo Lance doing business as Mary Jo Lance.
So move.
Move to approve by Counselor Buckschneider. Is there support?
Support.
By Counselor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.6, approve the 2026 kennel license for Shaggy's LLC, doing business as Shaggy's Grooming Board.
So move.
Moved to approve by Counselor Buckschneider, supported by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.7, approve the 2026 pawnbroker license for Thomas Anderson, doing business as North Star Pawn and Gun Incorporated.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Beyondich. Is there support? By Counselor Buckschneider. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.8, approve the 2026 on-sale and Sunday liquor license for the Sugar Shack Company, doing business as the Sugar Shack.
So move.
Move to approve by Counselor Buckschneider and supported by Counselor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.9, approve the 2026 3.2 off-sale liquor license for MNC Store Incorporated, doing business as MNC Store.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Motley. Is there support? By Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.10, adopt the resolution to accept donations for Shop with a Cop.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Motley. Is there support?
Support.
By Counselor Bachschneider. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.11, approve the resolution to accept donations for the Alcott Park.
So move.
Move to approve by Counselor Bachschneider. Is there support? By Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.12, approve the independent contractor contract with Steve Rockla for the 2026 with no changes from the previous contract for our video services.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
By Counselor Motley. Further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. I'm sorry, further discussion. Counselor Buckschneider.
Thank you. I had just noted that the contract still had 2025 dates, so we would just want to get those updated for 2026. Thank you.
You think we'll make that change, Counselor Buckschneider? Thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.13, adopt the resolution to hire rink attendants for the 2025-2026 season.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Paulson. Is there support?
Support.
By Counselor Motley. Further discussion? Hearing Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. What are we anticipating this cost to be for the budget, since we're budget talks?
Okay, what would be Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director? This is about the rink attendance for the 2025-2000 season. That's this year, moving into the first of the year area.
Yes, I do not have the budget in front of me, but if somebody has a copy of the budget request in front of them, if you look under the recreation budget for part-time employees, that dollar figure is what we are budgeting for rink attendance for this season.
I guess my question is because we are having significant conversation about part-time staff at the library, part-time staff at other places, the rinks are actually something that can be self-sustainable. They do not need to have individuals staffing those buildings. And if we're serious about cutting as much as the discussion has been hours and hours of, I would think that would be low-hanging fruit that would not affect anybody since those folks are not currently working with us. At this point, to continue on the path of nothing new, no extra, even though it is in the budget, I think it's something we should be cognizant about as we're moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm on the recreational budget here. I'm trying to find the, pardon? For the top? Okay, thank you. Why can't I find that? Salaries part-time. Is that for all recreation? Not just rink attendance? Okay, so it says, okay, so for altogether, yeah, over here, the 25-26 budget, total part-time salaries, $25,000. Okay, so it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Paulson.
Aye.
Beyondich.
Aye.
Bachschnider.
No.
Cuffey.
Aye.
Johnson.
No.
Motley.
Yes.
Motion fails. 4-2. Thank you. Counselor Motley?
Just a random question. Did we go through our full budget of the 25,000 for rink attendance last year, Brian? Do you know?
I think the difference is 15,000, I think, is what it shows in the budget, but
15,000.
Brian Silber?
It really depends on weather, how long we're able to keep them open, as to how long we'll be able to keep employing them. Last year, we ended up closing right at the end of February. Some years we're able to stay open through the end of March. So we budget for the longest season possible.
Thank you.
But Mother Nature determines how long the rinks can keep going.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just curious. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Brian. Okay, item 8.14, adopt the resolution for the 2026 final levy. Counselor Paulson?
Mayor, so in light of that not passing, then that is an additional reduction, am I correct in that saying? So the numbers would change?
Mm-hmm.
So we might need to reflect that.
I was going to keep that in there and then use that as the reserve, as part of the reserve, but.
Well, so this is part of my couple of questions that I have on this item. So I've noticed so I wrote down last night, we have, so the general levy, the levy general fund number is staying the same on both of these. So that's at a 0%?
Negative 7.44.
So I had written down -8 last night. So -7.44. And we still, how do you say this? We took out $310,000 in the revenue.
Not in the levy, it was in the intergovernmental line item.
Say that again.
It was intergovernmental. It was a grant we took out.
No, that wasn't intergovernmental, was
Yes,
it?
if you go on
Because
I highlighted the pages where I took it out. The third page in,
I've got it, I mean, you have it highlighted, I had it out, but that wasn't part of the $9 million intergovernmental breakdown that we had talked about last night. That was just for the VITA grants. That's different than the intergovernmental.
revenue side, no, IRRB grants, where's whether it is intergovernmental.
So then is it in there twice?
No.
So that's part of the $9 million in intergovernmental? And then, okay,
So when we reduced that 3 million, I had to find $3 million, $300,000 of expenses to cut, which I have done, which is the yellow spots show you where everything was cut.
okay. So when I look at, gosh, I have all these, again, all these papers.
I know, trust me.
So when I look at Britt from last night, the ambulance and police, or excuse me, police and fire. So last night, the numbers were on the, because we were gonna reduce the amount for the radios. And it's not 110,000 because we're paying 33,000, so it would be, wouldn't it be 110 minus 33,000? Would be the actual number, and then that should be reduced from all those that had the radios in their budget, is that correct?
We have a payment of 37,000 that they were going to
Or
waive. So the 37,000 is what we need to pay in '26 if we're not going to enter into a new agreement.
We've been paying that though all along.
Correct. It's one final payment left for '26.
Okay, so when I look at the line item on police, so last night, the police item was $4,554,523. Now this one is at $4,548,000, $4,548,818. And when I did the math, and I don't have that page, I think it was almost only $5,000 difference.
Because Pam had mentioned to me yesterday, she said the tasers were not in their line item for the blue spec. The blue section is the leases or the debt.
Okay,
Yeah,
but that was the tasers. We were still have to minus the radio.
I did. Yep. So that dollar amount, that 38,282, that's in that blue spot under debt service principal,
Okay.
is the tasers, 26,000.
No, the radios, I'm
I
referring
know,
to
but
the
I had to put the
radios.
tasers in there too. The 26,000 plus the small amount for the radios that was due for that last payment, that $37,000 that's paid in '26.
Okay. But the reduction on page,
No, I didn't have page numbers on.
so if you go under the green, public safety, the reduction is only $5,000 there.
I had to put the taser payment in there. That was not in there last night. It was in the debt levy, but I didn't account for it in their budget.
Okay, but when I asked you last time, you told me it was spread out with all three departments.
That's the radios, yes.
I'm asking
Tasers.
about the radios.
And the radios are now, the former lease, the one we've had this whole time, that's got 1 year left.
We paid $37,000 a month on the radios.
A year.
I mean, a year, excuse me, a year.
And that's divided between police and fire. It was never divided among ambulance. The 110, we were going to divide among the three because it only makes sense to do that.
Got it. Okay, so, and then that is spread out within the three,
This one,
Fire
this
and
last
ambulance.
payment for this year is just, I did the same that Sherry had already had budgeted, was the two, police and
Okay.
fire. And then I added in the taser dollar amount
Okay.
into the police.
because then if you look at the fire, that one stays the exact same. So there was no reduction on this, but I see what you're saying now.
Yeah, yep.
Okay. And then if we go to the street lighting, you took the 100,000 out for that. And have we found any information out on that?
Yes, they actually came in, we already paid for already this year, not next year.
So we've already paid for it in 2025.
Correct.
So we can remove that safely out
That
of the budget.
100,000 was removed with no payment, no qualm or whatsoever.
And no promissory note.
Nope. We don't want anybody any of their money.
Okay, that I like.
Me too.
And then what were the other two items?
The $500 for the youth in action
Yep, and then
out, and bring my whole list.
the library reduction,
Yes.
1 million?
They're just a hair over 1 million.
I have another one out of there
There's
too.
another one, I can't think
The
what it was.
$35,000, from the Iron Trail Motors Event Center, been the sales and marketing
Yes, the
position.
sales and marketing was, the budget for that was decreased, and then the benefits were all, I had taken the wage out, but the benefits I had not adjusted, so those were all adjusted. But
So did you reduce the
Yes.
transfer from
transfer is now
MEC.
1.2,
MEC?
rather than 1.3 something, it's 1.292633.
And then did that also include, Britt, the reduction down to 35,000 for marketing budget?
Yes, the marketing line item is now 30,000 total.
Okay, perfect. Yep. So was there anything else that I missed?
And if we go to
I
library.
just got confused on those radios, so.
I know, it was,
I appreciate the
I spent all
clarity.
day working on this, my desk was like a disaster, but.
Then just on the breakdown on the debt levy and the bonded and leased portion of the debt levy, Britt, that's the only, I think, other question that I really have is what is that number? I mean, what does that encompass?
The second to the last page is our debt levy again, our debt schedule. And the middle portion with the blue highlights tells you what's the capital leases.
So those are the capital leases on this page right here? Yep. Or here?
Oh, yep, you were the first one, right there.
Okay, we just got this. So that covers everything? Okay, and these are purchases already made,
Correct. And that
not
was- I did it-
anticipatory purchases?
In your packet this time, I did put a little explanation about debt levy, what it is and how it affects our budget. I just don't remember which page I put it on. It looks like this, 2026 levy overview. And it talks about
got it.
our debt levy is $3,058,604. About 51% of it is roads and streets, road and bridge improvements at 1.572 million. And then bonded indebtedness and leases, which would be the biggest one, is the Public Safety Center because it is technically a temporary bond until the USDA buys it out. So that sits in the bonded indebtedness. And then the equipment and facility leases is there too. So that's about 49% of the debt levy is the bonded indebtedness and the leases.
Thank you for that, I did not see that.
No, it's new, I just put it in there
And
today.
the breakdown.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Then I feel like the last question I have, and this might be silly because I might not understand. When you've got under sources of funds, then you say other sources, and then that number changed from last night's
Because
numbers.
that's the 310,000.
But that increased, oh my gosh, where is that paper? Okay, here we go. Here's December 22nd. So last night it was 11,790,323. Tonight it's 12,968,593. But I thought we found the equal in reduction.
We did.
So I want to know when we're going to go forward in approving, I want to, because the next item is approving the budget. And that's the budget, correct?
General fund, yes.
For the general fund. So that,
I may have done a typo, it may be 11 something, but. Very last minute thing I was working on.
I'm sure it was.
I do know it is a typo, that's from my wrong.
So just if that could just be clarified for what the,
And then we do have to address, like you mentioned, that, if we were going to take $25,000 out of the rec budget for the skating attendance, You have to realize that 25,000 is not just for January, February, March, it's also for November to December of later this year, if it's cold enough that we can do that.
Okay, so that's a conversation to have. And then I don't know, what are we at then with that as an overall, including the debt levy, with the negative general fund levy? What is the net levy?
7.541.
But I thought we just reduced no, but I thought we just reduced another 5% and we were already at 0 and we were at an 8% debt levy. So that doesn't add up to me.
We're at a 7.66% negative.
Negative. But wasn't our debt levy
that's-
under 10%?
If you notice on that page, one of the pages, I mentioned this yesterday, the very top here, that to try to make this more simple going forward, I took all, instead of the question we had about the debt levy, does the debt levy pay for the debt or the radios, or does the general fund levy? I moved all the debt levy into, anything that's debt into debt levy,
Okay,
and anything that is general fund into general fund levy. So the general fund looks like it went down even more than it really did.
but the debt levy increased.
Yes, but the dollar, it's still the same. It just, because it is confusing. And we're having that hard conversation about what's in general fund and what's not, because it's too easy to hide it in the general fund when it really is debt. You know, and we need to be more clear about what our debt is and what's.
Okay, so I didn't know that, so let me just read, let me kind of let that sink in. I'm done.
Go ahead, yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm trying to pull this up on my computer, of course, it's not gonna work now, but.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. First, okay, Counselor Bachschnider.
Thank you. I think mine is quick. Britt, I had emailed today about the police as well. If we approve the cheaper of the two contracts for criminal services, I believe that's about a $13,000 cost savings. I'm not sure if that got added into this budget or not as well.
It's under professional services.
And that was reduced. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Bachschnider. Okay, any other questions? Okay, would be entertaining a motion then to adopt the resolution for the 2026 final levy. And it's a reminder, we need 5 votes to pass.
Just a reminder, the levy, whatever, the total levy is a dollar amount, it's not a percentage.
Well, give us the dollar amount, would you please?
Yes.
Thank
The
you.
dollar amount would be $8,818,921.
Right, and that's what this is on the
It says
resolution.
right there, yes.
It's on the resolution.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, thank you. So looking, Counselor Bachschnider?
Thank you. And I know we have to adopt the resolution in the form of a dollar amount, but can you please remind us what that percentage is?
My favorite county spreadsheet that Brandon made us, which I really appreciate him doing that. So if you put in a negative 7.66 general levy, because we did increase the debt levy, it comes out to be a 7.541 overall rate increase. 7.541. 7.541. Boy, I can't talk more. Long day, sorry.
Can you just say that into the microphone?
7.541%.
Counselor Bachschnider?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just want to thank city staff for all the work on getting the general fund levy down to where we can. As I continue to say throughout all the meetings, we were looking at a 4% general levy, 0% general levy, and I did just keep bringing up that we still have a debt levy, right? That really isn't going to change. So, it's nice to see that dropped a little bit in this, but I also understand that it can't fully make up for it. And so while I would love that if that debt levy could be lower, it's something that we're kind of stuck with at this point and that we have to work with. So with that, I will move the resolution as presented.
Okay, Counselor Bachschnider moves to approve adopt the resolution to approve the final 2026 levy. Is there support? Is there support? Is there support?
I will support for discussion.
Support by Counselor Paulson. For further discussion, Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. Is this page? There's no page number, sorry. So is this the one, is this the right one? Is this the resolution?
It should be loose on your desk. That's the one I just handed out tonight.
Say that again?
I put it on your desk before the meeting.
That's the budget one. The levy one is in the packet.
Levy one is in the packet. Yep. The levy one is in the packet. And the new budget one was put on your desk.
Budget one?
Yes.
I'm sorry, it's all on one sheet and it says resolution on here.
It's one's budget and one's
Okay.
levy.
So then the levy is the one in
The
the,
one in your packet. Yep.
okay, got it, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I cannot in good conscience support a levy that does not continue to help us build out of what we've been doing for years. We keep saying in this room, we can't keep doing what we've been doing, we can't keep doing what we're doing, but we all are still choosing to not increase the levy enough to cover our expenses. We are not increasing the levy enough to build our reserves back up. We have been doing it for too long. I have not supported a levy vote at least the last couple, 3 years. No revenue, no extra revenue means there will not be any renewing of the reserve. There will be a change to city services. That is undeniable. With less people, less hours, less equipment, there will be changes. People will see changes to day-to-day operations within the city. Numerous times our staff and our departments have come to us and said, what do we cut? What do we cut? And the only answer is cut money. There have not been specifics made by this council because there is nothing else to cut except people and equipment. I have made a couple resolutions on this council that we give up our insurance for $100,000+ a year, and both times they were voted no. I cannot express my frustration that this council is not willing to sacrifice when we're asking our staff to do more with less. Some of the things I've heard over the last couple days, couple meetings, couple of everything, nothing is done in secret in this city. Everything is available. If somebody doesn't know an answer, it's because they're not seeking it out. All the answers I have, all the questions I have, I can get answered. I can send an email, I can stop in an office, I can get answers. It's a matter of asking the questions that need to get answered and not hypotheticals and not general questions that are just too broad to answer. I'm disgusted, frankly, at the cuts to programs that people rely on in the city to be safe. Our library is the heart of everything that happens. When we were looking at the library cuts, we got a dozen or more emails. I don't know that we got that many emails during the strike. Our community spoke, but they are being ignored. Not only members of our community, not only members of our staff, but members of our surrounding communities. People who drive in from Orr or Aurora or Cotton that come to our library and they go shopping and they spend their tax dollars in addition to what they're paying in property taxes here. It absolutely frustrates me. And I'm going to read into the record because I don't think people are really understanding what is being cut. So this is from our packet that was put on our desk today. Financial year 2026, City of Virginia budget reductions as of 12/15/25. General fund operating expense reductions for fiscal year 2026 budget. General government reduced by 5.93%. Streets and highways reduced by 6%. Culture and recreation reduced by 15%. Economic development assistance reduced by 49%. So in other words, we don't want new businesses coming here. We don't want new people to be able to invest in our community to increase our tax base. Vacancies in the following positions planned for fiscal year 2026. These are people that could be working in our community but will not be. A library clerk, IT position that has been vacant since 2023. A mechanic that is not filled after the strike. I've spent some time down there. Our mechanics are incredibly overworked. They cannot get everything done. I have pictures of them welding onto the old grader pieces that are welded onto the old grader. We are choosing to put money, dollar signs, in front of the safety and security of our staff. The maintenance and custodial at the library. Again, we're asking individuals to do more work in more buildings and not giving them any extra support. Lead rec assistants at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. 2 of them. That's 80 hours a week that we have taken away from our staff that are not supporting what we need done. Tonight I voted no on rink attendants, not because we don't need them. We desperately need them. But it was to prove a point that the council won't give up their insurance, but we can pay for some rink attendance. It's not okay. Moving on, general fund capital request items removed from the budget financial year 2026. This is stuff that costs us money in time and resources. There was a question asked a couple weeks ago or a week ago, why do we have a $100,000 budget for small parts? Because we have old equipment that doesn't work. Because we need to run to a local store or have someone fabricate things to make 20-year-old equipment continue to work. We have to have our mechanics, which we don't have enough of, work extra to fix stuff that they could be maintaining in half the time. General fund requests that have been removed. Sewer upgrades, $25,000. Computer upgrades, $25,000. Rush truck and battalion chief vehicle, $800,000. Recycling truck, $366,000. 2 Monroe dump truck snow plow, $60,000. That's your alleys. Next year, there won't be steam in the core system to be melting snow. We're not going to have enough dump trucks to get it taken care of. It's right here. We've cut them out. A skid steer that could be used in multiple departments. It could save time and energy for our staff. It could help keep them safe. $120,000, not getting one. Iron worker, $20,000. Dog park equipment, an amenity people look at when they're coming to the community, $10,000. Italian-American improvements, building improvements in the park, $15,000. That building is so old you can see through the bottom. It needs to be fixed. Replacement of a F-70 Ranger, $17,000. 2 pickup truck with plows, $130,000. Again, community, taking care of the community. And Park and Recreation Master Plan Update, which we have completed everything in, $75,000. No planning for the future, no sustainability. And finally, the Special Revenue Enterprise Fund capital items removed for 2026. The golf course, we have scheduled to fix equipment that needs to be replaced, not going to, $80,000. Ambulance, cardiac monitors and ventilators, $400,000. I sure hope I don't have a heart attack in the next year. That is a service that is being cut right here. Special Revenue Fund Enterprise removed, $400,000. Iron Trail Motors Event Center, locker room soundproofing and arena lighting upgrades, $20,000. Those are the budget cuts that are just specific to what we're doing. There will be an impact. There will be stuff that gets missed. There will be people that are affected by this. Saying anything other is absolutely unrealistic. You cannot cut that much money, and still, we will not be doing anything for our reserves. 1%, 2%. I'm willing to pay extra money. The gentleman earlier said on a house of $125,000, it's $11 a year for our portion. I'm willing to pay $20 extra a year. I'm willing to pay $20 extra a year for my kids to have a great school. I'm willing to pay $20 extra a year for my county roads to be plowed when I go visit my sister. It costs money. Everybody says, well, I have more expenses at my house. So does the city. When does the city get to recoup some of the extra expenses we have? We can't keep doing it. You keep saying we can't keep doing what we've been doing. Then we need to raise the levy a decent amount as projected so that we can renew and we can take care of our citizens. I will not be supporting this levy nor the budget. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson. It has been moved and supported to adopt the resolution for the 2026 final levy. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Motley?
Yeah, I just kind of want to touch up on a couple of things segueing off of Councilor Johnson. So just a question for Britt or Megan. Has any city employee been laid off in the police department due to the 2026 budget? What was that? I'm sorry, I couldn't, okay. Has anybody in the fire department been laid off due to the 2026 budget?
No.
Has anybody in our EMS ambulance service been laid off due to the 2026 budget?
No.
Has anybody in the library been laid off in the 2026 budget?
No.
Just kind of, since we went through some of this, I'm just going to kind of say a couple out loud. The library clerk IT position, don't even know why this is listed since we got rid of that in '23. It is now '25 and we're focusing on the '26 budget. As far as the mechanic not being filled, that was on the recommendation of Jim Rosfit, the head of our Public Works Department. So again, not sure why that's still on here. Lead recreation assistants, they left. They just weren't filled due to attrition and our ITMEC being so expensive. As far as, I'm trying to think here what else, city councilor insurance, we talked about it at least last meeting. I'm not sure if it was a meeting before, but you weren't here. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to catch up on the meetings, Councilor Johnson, but we are getting rid of that. And it requires, correct me if I'm wrong, Britt, but a resolution in May before the next election, is that correct?
Before the filing's open.
Perfect, so yep, that's coming. So some of that is slightly, just wanted to clarify for the public. So thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Motley. So this is, we may had to make some very difficult decisions, so we've tried to do that. So we're at this point right now where this is the final meeting, and this is our, under 8.14, there is a motion on the floor to adopt the resolution for the 2026 final levy. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Beyondich? Aye. Bachschnider?
Aye.
Duffy?
Aye.
Johnson?
No.
Motley?
Yes.
Paulson?
Motion does pass 5-1. Thank you. 8.15 is adopt a resolution to set the 2026 budget.
Mayor, if I do have a typo on there. This was my fault tonight.
Okay, would
Really
you,
apologize.
would
Yeah.
you,
So let me go over it if it's okay.
yep, thank you.
That levy general fund is 5,526,318.
Yep,
The debt levy is 1,572,882.
yes,
Bonded and leased portion of debt levy is 1,485,722.
yes,
Tax abatement levy is 132,828.
yes,
Economic development levy, tax abatement, is 101,170.
yes,
For the total property tax levy of 8,818,921.
yes,
The other sources is what I had the wrong number. That's actually the total of the couple things together. So it should have been not the 12 million's on there on the resolution, it should be 11,480,253.
Okay, so under other sources,
yes.
instead of $12,968,593, it is $11,480,253.
Correct. And we are anticipating nothing from reserves to be transferred into the general fund, so that's a zero.
Okay,
And then the transfer in from other sources is 744,170.
okay, thank you.
For total sources of funds of 21,043,344.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I apologize.
Thank you. We'll make that adjustment. It has been moved and supported, correct? Pam? It has been moved and supported? Okay. Is there any further?
No, sorry.
Well, that's all right.
Budget, no.
Okay. Okay. What were you, did you have
we have
something?
not.
Oh, okay, very good. Okay, so thank you. So those are the numbers. Looking for council action on under 8.15 to adopt the resolution to set the 2026 budget. Councilor Paulson.
I will move to set the budget at $11,480,253, with the understanding that the reduction is the reduction in there, but then for the rink attendance.
Yes, yes. The answer, yes. It's taken out of there.
Okay. I will make that.
A motion by Councilor Paulson to adopt the 2026 budget in the amount of $11,480,253. Is there support? Is there support? Is there support? Motion fails for lack of support.
I think the number that you read off was just the incorrect number. Is that right, Britt? The 11 million is just
The
the
other
number that
sources,
was
yeah.
incorrect on the line?
Yeah.
No, that's okay. It's been a couple days for all
On
of
2
us.
days, yeah. So the correct amount was 21,043,344 is the total.
Okay, and that's the correct number even with the change that was made above? Okay, thank you.
Correct. No, it's okay. I'm sorry. It's
We'll
been a
even
long
let
day.
you make the next motion. You got this.
So, well, I think,
Excuse me. Is there a further reduction, though?
That's the question. Do you guys want to reduce more, or do you want to just put it into the reserve? It's only $25,000. We're not talking a windfall here, but
Reserves.
Reserves.
I suggest that as well, personally, but that's my,
So the number stays the
this
same?
number stays the same, yes.
21,043,344.
44, correct.
Support for discussion.
I would have a legal question. Can the maker of the motion that failed make another motion for the same thing? Which is, what's a different number? There was lack of support. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification, Pam. So Council Paulson moves to approve the 2026 budget under item 8.15 of the agenda in the amount of $21,043,344. Is there support?
Support for discussion.
Thank you. Support by Councilor Boxsnyder for discussion. First of all, because the second of the motion, Councilor Boxsnyder, then over to Councilor Johnson. Councilor Boxsnyder.
Thank you. And just to confirm, this budget lines up with the same percentage that our levy is being set at.
Yes,
Can you say that in the microphone?
yes, 100%.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Boxsnyder. It has been moved and supported. Further discussion, Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just need the staff to know this rejection of this budget, it has nothing to do with the hundreds and hundreds of hours that you have put into, in my opinion, unguided demands, down to the fact that we're not funding Youth in Action for $500 boggles my mind. We support our youth and not giving them $500 that goes to helping our students attend an amazing conference that brings students from all over the Iron Range, Duluth, and Hermantown together to share leadership. The people who will be sitting in these chairs in 10 or 20 years, hopefully, is astounding to me. I just can't do this. This is not community-focused at all. It's based on numbers and numbers only. I hope people understand the ramifications that will be coming this year and next year. And as a point of clarification, any counselor at any time can voluntarily pay more for their insurance, or they can reject it. That is a voluntary action that can be taken by individuals. I will not be supporting this budget. I think we are going down the same path that everybody wants to avoid. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Once again, under item 8.15, there's a motion and a support to adopt the resolution set the 2026 budget in the amount of $21,043,344. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Bachschnider,
Aye.
Huffy,
Aye.
Johnson,
No.
Motley,
Yes.
Paulson,
Aye.
Beyondich.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-1. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councillor Motley.
Thank you. I just want to segue quick here and just say, I know, and I can imagine that this budget gives every single department in this city anxiety, and for that, I truly apologize. I know we have some very good workers in this city, and I just want to thank you for all that you do, and know that we do appreciate you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, we have to make some hard decisions, and some hard decisions were made with a lot of angst. So thank you for that, Councillor Motley. We'll move to item 9, committee reports. The committee of the whole meeting that was held on December 16th, 2025. And we'll turn this portion of our council meeting over to our city administrator, Britt C. Bennett. Britt?
Thank you. At the December 16th meeting, Mr. Matt Reed, our engineer of record from SCH, was present to discuss the 16th Avenue Culverts project. We had discussed the funding mechanism that would be tied to that culvert project. We do have money from IRRB. It was moved and supported to bring the discussion of the 16th Avenue Culvert project to the next council meeting regarding funding for this project.
Councillor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I won't be supporting this because we don't have all the funding and we didn't budget it. Plus, I felt that SEH's charge on there for $58,000 it's like 20% of the overall project. I feel that that's too much, and I think this can be revisited with potentially looking at other grant opportunities, as well as maybe having a discussion with SEH regarding how much time we want them spent on site. So for that reason, I won't be supporting it.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess, I don't know if anyone has any other questions. I would be happy to table it until we get, I need to put a time frame on a table motion? Okay, so I will just move to table this discussion.
Councillor Paulson moves to table the discussion with respect to the 16th Avenue Culvert project. Is there support?
Support.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam. Aye.
Johnson,
No.
Motley,
Yes.
Paulson,
Aye.
Beyondich, Bachschnider.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-1. Thank you.
At the committee of the whole meeting, the council reviewed approved the purchasing policy with the requested updates and had that brought here to the committee of the whole, the council meeting today to finish them. I did change that one paragraph that was a little bit vague that had caused some questions. I did reword that. I brought it to Brian Lindsay. He was comfortable with it. So I bring it to you for your review today.
Thank you. Under 9.1, city administrator from the council, from the committee of the whole meeting is requesting the approval of the updated purchasing policy with amendments as requested at the committee of the whole meeting.
So move.
Move to approve by Councillor Bachschnider. Is there support?
Support.
By Councillor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Bachschnider.
I just want to say thank you for all the hard work on this. I know that this was a back and forth thing for a while, but I really think this is going to be really helpful going forward for us. So thank you.
Thank you. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
It was moved and supported to approve the discussion, to move the discussion of the Motorola radio lease for the police and fire departments to the city council meeting, which is today. As we mentioned yesterday at the budget meeting, just to give everybody an update again, we have applied for a grant through the Gary Sinise Foundation, but unfortunately, it's going to be about 3 to 6 months before we hear something. So it may be prudent at this time to wait on the purchase of those until we hear something.
Okay, thank you.
I would move to table the purchase of the new radios until after we hear back from the grant application.
Thank you. Moved by Counselor Bachschnider to table. Is there support?
Support.
By Counselor Motley. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
There was a motion to allow the police and the fire department to collaborate for potential grant opportunities for the Motorola radios.
So move.
Move to approve by Counselor Bachschnider. Is there support? Is there support? Support by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Eric Jonason, our Deputy Fire Chief, was present to discuss the Sprint Medic program and his request for a purchase of the build-out of equipment that belongs in the 2026 Chevrolet Tahoe to be used for the Sprint Medic program. It was moved and supported to approve the quote from Guardian for the full build-out for the 2026 Chevrolet Tahoe.
So move.
Move to approve by Counselor Bachschnider. Is there support?
Support.
By Counselor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
It was moved and supported to approve the quote for one Motorola radio for the 2026 Chevrolet Tahoe.
Move to approve by Counselor Paulson. Is there support?
Support.
By Counselor Bachschnider. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
It was moved and supported to approve the quote from Tactical Solutions for the fire department and Sprint Medic.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Motley. Is there support?
Support.
By Counselor Bachschnider. Further discussion? We're getting a lot of equipment and a lot of vehicles and a lot of things ready to go, but we still don't have these things on the road with our paramedics providing the service. So hopefully, this is coming to an end so that we can provide what's needed for emergency services. So moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Deputy Police Chief Tad Nicola was present to discuss the quote from Archkey for the audiovisual components for the Public Safety Building. It was moved and supported to approve the quote from Archkey for the audiovisual equipment for the Public Safety Facility in the amount of $16,172 to be taken out of the Public Safety Technology budget.
Move to approve by Counselor Paulson. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Motley. All those in favor of 9.1G, approve the quote from Archkey for the Public Safety Center in the amount of $16,172 from the Public Safety Technology budget. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
We had discussion regarding the proposals for the criminal legal services. After discussion, it was moved and supported to approve the quote from Frontier Law Firm for criminal legal services for a flat monthly rate of $5,000 per month with an additional $175 per hour for additional or specially negotiated services.
So move.
A move to approve by Counselor Bachschnider. Is there support? Is there support?
Or
Support by Counselor Johnson. Further discussion? I have some, and then we'll move forward. First of all, it is the lowest bid, but But in light of the information disseminated to us by Chief Mattson, I did a little more digging and research into this. And they've got such a good relationship with Mike Carney, who has been the prosecutor for a long period of time, and the services he provides is professional. This law firm does not have a public defender's office. And so Mr. Carney prosecutes only misdemeanor cases for the city. All felony cases are automatically prosecuted by the St. Louis County Attorney's Office. And so he has been, has a really good working relationship with the city. He's got the reputation with the court system. I think that Mr. Carney has provided the services. He's been here for a long time. I still think that Mr. Carney should continue to provide the services for a couple of reasons. One is that there's no conflict of interest from him, because other law firms have public defenders. Public defenders are hired to provide defense for misdemeanors, example, DWIs. So there could be a conflict moving forward, or that law firm would have to recuse themselves from representing that particular client in defense. So that's number one. And number two, that this is a process that shows that there's a difference in the cost of soil on a monthly basis. But I believe Mr. Carney is, what I wanted to say, there's one more point I wanted to make, and I'm sorry that it slipped my mind, but I'm not going to support the approval of the contract for Mr. Lindsay and the Trenti Law Firm. Oh, the last piece is, I think there should be a separation of representation from a civil perspective as opposed to a criminal perspective. We've had that division for a long period of time, and I think that should continue. Those are my comments, and I won't be supporting that. First for Councilor Motley, then over to Councilor Johnson, and then over to Councilor Paulson. Councilor Motley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, because I had also corresponded with city staff in regards to this, so I will not be supporting Trenti with this also, and just wanted to make that known. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson, and then over to Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate your input and your diligence with your experience in both sides of the criminal law. I appreciate that, and I will also not be supporting this at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson.
So in light of the information you just brought forward, along with the email from Chief Mattson, I would also agree that I think a separation is important, and then no conflict arises. I just want to ask, what is the difference in cost? I was the original, I think, motion maker to go with the lowest cost, but I was unsure which firm it was. So is it a $1,000 difference or a $500, $1,000?
About $12,000 a year difference. Excuse me, Councilor Bachschnider?
I believe it was just over 13. I think they were 6,100 and was it Britt $10 a month or something like that? The other one.
Okay, and I mean, I know we're looking at budget numbers, but I do feel like with this information, along with Chief Mattson's email, that I would really like to go a different direction out of respect for that, and also to make sure that no conflicts potentially arise. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So it has been moved and supported to approve the quote from Trenti for criminal services at a flat rate of $5,000 per month with $175,000 for additional or specially negotiated services. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Johnson,
No.
Motley,
No.
Paulson. No. Beyondich, Bachschnider,
Aye.
Cuffey.
No. Motion does not pass.
We'll move to contact and contract with the other law firm that Mr. Carney is a part of. If you would put the proper name in, please.
There was a Colosimo, Patchen, and Carney with Joe Lewicki, the managing partner. Moved by Councilor Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
by Counselor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Motley,
Yes.
Paulson,
Aye.
Yondich,
Aye.
Bachschnider,
No.
Huffy,
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-1. Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item, it was moved and supported to approve the draft professional services agreement with Steve Fingeroos for the golf professional services beginning April 1st, 2026 for a 3-year term.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
By Counselor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor Cuffey discussed the Minnesota mayor's draft letter and then requested permission to sign off on it and approve sending the letter on December 17th, 2025. Excuse me. It was moved and supported to allow the mayor to sign the proposed letter from the Minnesota Mayor's Association and approve sending it on December 17th, 2025.
Do we need an additional motion since that date has passed?
I'm
And I
sorry.
think we had copies of the letter here for everybody to review too, so we're good.
We're good.
It was sent, wasn't it? It's already been gone.
100 mayors signed on to this letter, so
That's
and
great.
it was broadcast locally and in national news as well. So thank you. And thanks for the support. I think it was well-written and well constructed by, with a lot of input. So thank you for that. Okay, next item, please.
The Committee of the Whole went into a closed session to review the request from the Copper Nickel Restaurant regarding a request amendment to the lease portion of their contract. And then we additionally also discussed the draft hotel development agreement and amendment between the City of Virginia and Virginia Hospitality LLC under Minnesota Statute 13D05 Subdivision 3. And we also reviewed a letter to the Mesabi Humane Society. When we went back into open session, it was moved and supported to direct city staff and the city attorney to draft an addendum to the Copper Nickel contract that would pertain to the request for business hours and rental adjustment and to run concurrently with the lease.
So moved.
A move to approve by Counselor Paulson and supported by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have one further point. Britt, did we potentially adjust the budget on that reduction?
No, in the budget we approved today, the state doesn't, we don't report to the state the enterprise funds. So this will be
So we're
approved. So
fine.
we're,
Okay.
yep, we're going to need to talk a little bit about the next meeting in January, about the enterprise funds a little bit too, the garbage rates. He kind of alluded to that. There's a 3% increase we need to look at, but
Okay, so we're good on that one.
so as soon as, and I did get a draft today from Brian Lindsay. I have not had a chance to review it fully, and he wants to let Jennifer and Tim from Copper Nickel review it before we bring it back to the council. So we should have that hopefully for the next committee of the whole.
Okay, so it has been moved and supported to draft that. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
It was moved and supported after closed session to approve the First Amendment of the Development Agreement with Virginia Hospitality LLC.
And this is the hotel.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So move.
A move to approve by Counselor Bachschnider. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Paulson. Further discussion, I went through the amendment. There's just some pretty tight timelines here, so last opportunity. So moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
It was moved and supported to approve discussing the recommended letter for the Mesabi Humane Society for final approval at today's meeting.
Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Was that the letter that was discussed in the closed session?
Correct.
So we still have not given approval to send that?
Correct. We wanted to wait till we had everybody here.
Okay, I would move to approve sending the letter.
Okay, Counselor Paulson moves to approve to sending the letter to the Humane Society. Is there support? By Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Bachschnider.
Thank you. I know you mentioned at the beginning of this meeting that you met with the sheriff's department. Did the sheriff's department have the opportunity to review this letter? And is it in alignment with what we had at the conversation with them?
And, which, we did.
Yes, oh, yes.
We
Yeah,
did, we
can
have
talk
some,
about
we
it.
had some extensive conversation. And so, basically, we talked about the contract and the quandary that we're in at this point in time. They're in the exact same quandary as we are with respect to negotiating something out. And so, earlier, we talked about putting a collab together with the help of Paul Peltier from Rams to try to figure out a way to do that. But yeah, we're all in the same boat. He understands what we're paying. We made it very clear.
Right, I just want to make sure that if we send this letter, that it's in alignment with conversations that we're having to ultimately come to a solution.
And I.
Go ahead.
Yes, I will make sure to, whether I put it on its own line or whatever, that we want to talk. That's what this, hopefully this letter will do, is spur a conversation going forward in '26.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Bachschnider. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Item 10, Commission Liaison Reports. Anyone have a Commission Liaison report they'd like to provide today? Moved on. 11, Department Head Reports. Mr. Silver has something to bring forward.
I believe you just passed a budget. What was that correct? You just passed a budget? So I'm really excited to announce that you guys passed something that I've been asking for several years now. For years, I have thought that we need to do more community enrichment activities as part of our park program. But every year, we seem to cut those things out of our budget. Well, the budget that you just passed has money for us to spend and revenue for us to collect for doing some community enrichment activities. So I'm super excited to announce that we will be beginning the Third Thursday Project. This will be an arts and craft type project that anybody can sign up for a nominal fee. And the third Thursday of every month, that evening at the Klein Cupoletti Building, or maybe someplace else, we will be doing a community art project that you can take home with you. So our hope is to continue to grow this, so it's more than one night a month, but our goal is to get the community active and engaged and in participating in the things that we do and the things that you do. So I want to thank you for including this money in the 2026 budget. Hopefully we can continue to grow this, just like we've grown our Music in the Park program since COVID. So again, thank you for what you've left in the budget for us for this next year. We will do the best that we can with it to continue to meet and exceed the needs and wants of our community. And you guys are appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, any other department head reports? Britt, do you have anything else you'd like to bring forward? Pam, anything from clerk's office? How about finance? Megan, anything?
I guess just in the spirit of holidays, we have so many staff in all of our different departments that do hard things every day. Just some recognition of that. Just want to shout out a thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And did you get the glitch fixed there in the payroll area?
And people will be getting paid, yes.
And I know everybody wanted to know that, and you worked very hard to get that done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jenny, from our community planning department, anything? Not today. Hopefully in the near future. We look forward to that. Thank you, Jenny. Okay. Just one thing for me, I just want to thank our staff. I mean, and the counselors as well. It's been a long and arduous budget process. We've done as much as we can in the budget moving forward. I know there's just a lot of angst on the part of, there's a lot of huge challenges we're facing coming forward. So, let's try to hang in there and do the very best we can, try to follow the guidelines established as presented by Baker Tilly today, and maybe we can just be more focused on a process moving forward for the long term. So thank you, everybody, for your hard work, particularly you, Britt, who has had to take on the responsibilities of finance prior to Megan coming on board. And so between them and all of us, we've able at least to come to some semblance of agreement here. So thank you for everybody for all your hard work. So Councillor Johnson.
Mayor, as you know, mental health and taking care of oneself is always a priority of mine. And I just want to give a call out and shout out to folks and validate that the holidays are a tough time of year for multiple reasons. Thankfully, today was 4 seconds more of daylight than we had yesterday, and that will continue to grow. That folks experiencing mental challenges, physical challenges, financial challenges this time of year, you are seeing, and there are supports in our community. There's a first and third Sundays of every month that chair an organization called Food Not Bombs is providing free hot meals, free take-home canned goods and clothing moving forward. There are a tremendous amount of community supports that we have, and I just want folks to really make sure they're taking care of themselves. It's okay to not go to grandma's house for 4 hours. It's okay to stay home and just take care of yourself. We all put a lot of pressures on ourselves to do what other people want us to do, and sometimes the best thing we can do is take care of ourselves. So just want to wish everybody a good break. Rockridge is finally off of school. Got to spend the day in kindergarten today. That's why I wore my pajamas tonight, because it was pajama days. It was a fabulous way to start the holiday week. So happy holidays to everybody, and I'd like to thank all the counselors and elected officials and staff. It is hard work, and disagreeing professionally is part of what our job is, and I want to know you all know I may not agree with you, but I do respect where you're coming from, and we will continue to move and work forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Johnson. So on behalf of myself, and you can all chime in for yourself, but on behalf of me and my family, I want to wish everybody a happy holidays and a very Merry Christmas. Be safe, be healthy, be strong, be kind to one another. This is a great holiday season. Let's enjoy it together. It's been a long, long year. Let's celebrate. Anybody else have anything they'd like to chime in on before we adjourn the council meeting? Okay, we're going to adjourn the council meeting. I have to dig it out of the garbage can to figure out when the next day is. Thank you very much. We'll move to adjourn the council meeting. To our next council meeting, we'll be here in the City Council chambers on Tuesday, January 13th, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. Thank you very much, everybody. Good night and be safe. We stand adjourned.